Phone lines are open. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. But first up, news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 23 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 48. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, El Salvador says it'll house violent U.S. criminals and take in deportees of any nationality. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced the deal after meeting with El Salvador's president, calling it an act of extraordinary friendship. El Salvador will not only take in Salvadorians who entered the U.S. illegally, but also any criminal, illegal migrant of any nationality. That includes violent gang members. The El Salvador president is absolutely incredible. If you haven't heard him, he is a godsend. Amazing. China is slapping tariffs on some U.S. products. Retaliation for tariffs enacted. Beijing said that it will charge extra tariffs of 15% on coal and liquefied natural gas, along with 10% on crude oil, farm equipment, and some cars starting next week. So negotiations will continue there. The fallout from U.S. AID continues. Anti-American Ilhan Omar.
We get to decide. We have the power of the purse. We get to decide where money is allocated, and it's the executive's power to make sure that that money gets to where it needs to get. When we talk about civil servants being let go, what we are talking about is not saving money. It's essentially saying they can get paid while they're home and their work doesn't get done on behalf of the American people. Right. It is us, taxpayers, who are being ripped off. It is us, taxpayers, who are not getting the resources that we paid in.
So Doge ended USAID today. What is USAID? Well, it's not aid. It's the U.S. Agency for International Development. It was a CIA slush fund and money laundering operation for NGOs. They just found the devil's purse and they just cut it off. Who were they funding? Well, people like the Clinton Foundation. Oh, man.
And who can be a failure in so many ways? And instead of getting fired, hey, we'll give ourselves a raise. California, you know what I'm talking about.
That's Tim Hawkins, and that holds up. That was in 2011, and that kind of wraps up what USAID is all about, and Jeff and Bill will talk about that this hour. Director of National Intelligence nominee Tulsi Gabbard and HHS pick RFK Jr. face critical committee votes today. Both talked with GOP senators over the weekend whose votes will be critical to move them forward in the confirmation process. Gabbard and Kennedy will need every single Republican vote. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu will meet with DJT at the White House today. He'll be the first foreign leader to meet with Trump in his second term. The FDA is giving the go-ahead for clinical trials to transplant genetically modified pig organs into people with kidney failure. 2 companies will take part in the trials. United Therapeutics Corporation starting with 6 patients and eGenesis with 3. Denver police say someone may be impersonating an officer in the North Park Hill area. Investigators say a man was pulled over by a gray van with blue flashing lights on Holly Street on Sunday. The suspect reportedly told the driver that he was an undercover officer checking for stolen vehicles. The driver noticed his wallet was missing after the stop and found a suspicious charge on his credit card. The police department says anyone can ask officers for official identification if anything about their behavior seems suspicious. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. Tickets for Super Bowl 59 are more affordable compared to last year's championship game. The cheapest tickets for this year's big game can be had for under $4,000. And on the secondary market, the ticket price has dropped by 30% over the past week and more than 50% compared to last year's Super Bowl. It's the Chiefs and the Eagles coming up this Sunday. Nuggets over the Pelicans, 125-113 last night. The Avalanche back in action tonight. I think they take on Vancouver. 20 in Brighton, 21 in Wheat Ridge, and 23 in Denver. It is Tuesday, and Jeff and Billy continue.
You can take your money with a twinkle in their eye. Take it all away and give it to some other guy. The government can.
Oh, man, that is so beautiful. Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast, a chilly start across the Denver metro, but sunshine will help us get back to around the mid-50s for highs today. Lows tonight mild in the middle and upper 30s. For Wednesday, stronger westerly winds will provide a downslope and give us temps in the mid-60s. Skies will also be mostly sunny. Breezy winds for Wednesday night with lows in the upper 30s. Thursday and Friday, we're going to drop to the mid-50s, 40s, and a few rain and snow showers this weekend. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, Bill, as you can imagine, the text messages are already popping off this morning. 5556. Text in. Good morning, Bill. Well, I guess Trump does know something about tariffs. He used them this weekend to get 4 countries to capitulate to his negotiation demands, which were in America's best interest. As they say in a pool game, he ran the table. Bill, can you say winning? Want to respond?
Yeah, the person doesn't know what was happening beforehand, but that's okay. It's fine because both Canada and Mexico demonstrated that the best way to negotiate with Donald Trump is to assume he doesn't know what's going on right now. And they did it masterfully because Canada and Mexico, Texture, gave very little based on the tariffs. The vast majority of what they were promising as far as troops and everything else were already committed. The Mexico troops, that was done under Biden. Biden didn't threaten tariffs. In fact, Biden got more. He got 15,000. We haven't seen anything from Mexico. I've been looking for the reporting. I haven't seen anything so far from anything official that says it's an additional 10,000, just that they are going to reinforce the border with 10,000. Biden had got them to commit 15,000, and they're not there yet. So I see nothing that says this is now 25,000 instead of 15. I haven't seen anything in official reporting that leads me to believe either from Mexico or from the U.S. that this is an additional amount of troops. And the Canada, the whole thing about the
troops aren't there now.
No, but they were already committed. 15,000 was committed under Biden. They were committed under Biden. And so she said, we're going to send 10 late last year. That was the middle of last year. That was part of the issue that when Biden negotiated the redo on the border when he finally started paying attention. Part of the negotiation was 15,000 troops from Mexico being sent to the border. And I just, again,
But
I'm not saying
they weren't there.
My understanding is they're not all there yet. I think about 8,500 are there more or less, but they're not all there yet. So the idea, but again, the issue is I don't see Mexico saying we are committing new troops. What I'm thinking it's so, and again, I haven't seen anything on either side. I'm not saying that they are new troops. I'm not saying there aren't. All I'm saying is I haven't seen anything about them being new troops. So my assumption is that Mexico just said, okay, we're already sending troops. Let's just tell him we're sending troops. And he doesn't know any better. And the thing with Canada and the huge $1 billion investment and stuff at the border, that was announced in December before the tariffs with Trump. The only thing that's new is the task force. And there's one other thing that Canada agreed to. So basically, after the tariff threat, they got a task force and something else in Canada and very little anything in Mexico. Is that winning? Is that really winning, Texture? Call in. Tell me how that's winning. Because everything else in that agreement was already existent. And guess what? And you can dislike or like the Biden administration not taking a position on it. That was all accomplished under the Biden administration without tariffs, without the threats. So tell me again about this master negotiator. Tell me again about this guy who brought everybody to heel. And in the meantime, the extra tariffs on China have started retaliatory measures. That's going to work out well. So that great. So really winning to get countries to agree to stuff they were already doing. Woo!
Yeah,
I'm
Bill,
excited.
I mean, I'll be honest. I don't see any of this stuff in the news.
Any of what stuff?
Of the idea that all this stuff was already committed.
No, but you can go back
and that Trump, all he did was just get some minor agreements. I mean,
I know
that's not the way the New York Times is covering any of this stuff.
Yeah, because
I
understand that, but they're wrong. And what they're looking at, because you can go back and you can look at the agreement that was had under Biden with Mexico. It's 15,000 troops and everything else they're doing. Yes. I just don't see any new troops. I'm not saying they aren't new troops. I'm just saying if they were new troops, I would assume that either Mexico or the U.S. would point out these are troops in addition to the ones that had already been committed. And the same thing with Canada. If you listen to Justin Trudeau, he said, Canada is committed to blah, 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 $1.7 billion. That was done in December. Never said it was new. Listen to the language. The language they said shows what was happening. We can go back, you can review the announcement that was made from Canada back in December, and you can review the Biden agreement with Mexico. So, yay. Again,
Canada
didn't get anything.
Announcement in December.
Yeah, it was in December when they made the announcement, over $1 billion. I'll see if I can find it for you. But yeah, it's not new. It was already announced.
All right.
So again, winning.
I mean,
so tell me again. This is the fun part: is no one knows
stuff, but that is not at all the way this is being covered, even in the mainstream media, which by no means wants to give Trump any credit whatsoever.
I know,
but in these cases, you're looking at. I mean, this is what I said tariffs were always going to be used for, which was an effort to drive policy agendas. New York Times, I think, picked up on that finally over the weekend, where they're like, Donald Trump doesn't want to go to war, but he's willing to use the power of the American economic engine to drive his policies forward. Do I think Donald Trump wants to change the economy? Yeah, I think he wants to adjust it a little bit, but I think his primary motivation is to address some of these issues. We had in studio yesterday the folks from the DEA talking about how terrible, how we are facing record amounts of fentanyl coming into this country. And they believe that finally this year, for the first time, we are not going to hit those numbers anymore, because in many ways, the dog's been let off the leash. These guys can actually go do what they were instructed, trained, and created to do originally, which is to go after these bad guys that are killing Americans. When you look at the sheer number of Americans dying as a result of fentanyl, then the fact that Donald Trump is prioritizing and getting both Canada and Mexico to take this as seriously as it needs to be, because I don't think they have been taking it seriously. I think you have these cartels just operating in Mexico. And I think Mexico is a very corrupt country. And so Donald Trump has gotten these countries to step up and try to address some of these fentanyl issues. I think it's fantastic. He deserves credit.
Yeah, he got a little bit of stuff. Yay. Good job. Okay. But not the major stuff. The major stuff is already existing. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into that because I don't see that anywhere. And if you don't mind sending it to me, I'd be happy to take a look at that. But tell us what you think. I think these are great wins. I think these are great wins for America. I think Donald Trump is putting America back into its place in kind of as the lead dog, that you respond to us gaining respect in this country or in the world. I would love to hear from you. Do you agree with Bill that this was just kind of like, this stuff was already coming along anyways, and Donald Trump got some concessions, but wasn't a big thing? I think he's getting these countries to focus in on our priorities, what benefits the American people, and I'm very proud for what he achieved yesterday. Join the conversation. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Again, 720-819-5115. Bill, you want to tell us about the good people at Wound Care Associates of Colorado?
Yeah, we've got a brand new sponsor that we've got here at the show, Wound Care Associates of Colorado, and it's kind of personal to me. I want to tell you, we're going to meet Jen, who started it yesterday. She's going to come in first segment of the 9 o'clock hour tomorrow, so you can get to talk to her a little bit there. But I want to tell you about what they do. Wound Care Associates of Colorado is about making you feel better. Those slow healing cuts, those diabetic ulcers, those pressure sores, as you get older, you don't heal quite as fast. Your body's not making the cells as quickly. A lot of reasons for it. And so those wounds can kind of linger. The problem is any torn skin or tissue, that's a highway for dirt, germ, and bacteria to get into your body. So those slow healing cuts, the pressure sores, the diabetic ulcers can be challenging to manage and can directly impact your life. In my own life, my aunt spent a number of days and weeks inside of the hospital after she picked up MRSA while getting treated for a chronic wound. Ended up with some amputations because of it. And Jen, who's going to come in here, has an even worse story to tell you that she'll share with you tomorrow. But what we want to talk about is that what can Wound Care Associates of Colorado do for you? Basically, they come to your home and treat your wound. It's like getting a house call from a nurse practitioner. In the privacy and security of your own home, you get compassionate, comprehensive care from Wound Care Associates of Colorado. Don't have to drive yourself to the office. You're not going to be waiting at the clinic. They're going to assess your wound, create a personalized treatment plan, and provide all of the necessary care to heal your wound. That's the difference maker with Wound Care Associates of Colorado. They're going to heal the wound. Too many wound care treatment facilities just want to maintain it. They're trying not to let it get any worse. Who does that? Is that even if you're going through cancer treatments, they're just like, well, we're just going to try not to let this get any worse. They're going to try to get the cancer out of you. Yeah. I mean, everything that you're doing, if your car has got a problem, you don't go, well, it's just maintain it so it doesn't get any worse. That's not going to help. It's not going to fix the problem. So why would you do it with your body? Why would you do it with your health? Convenience, comfort, and privacy is what you get with Wound Care Associates of Colorado. The comfort and privacy of your own home, you get a personalized treatment, the tailor-cared plans that will address your specific needs, and it's going to reduce the risk of complications and promote faster healing. If you or a loved one is struggling with a chronic wound, do not wait. Ignoring the problem isn't going to fix the problem. Visit coloradowound.com, coloradowound.com for more information and to schedule your in-home visit today. That's coloradowound.com. When you reach out to them, tell them you heard about them here on the Jeff and Bill Show. Helps us out a lot.
That's great to hear, Bill. We're getting phone calls. Join the conversation. 303-696-1971, 5556, agreeing with me, saying that this is what he would have said if he had called in. But you're welcome to join the conversation. Would love to have you here. And where do you fall along the lines on what happened with these tariffs? Big win for America, or these were coming anyways? Donald Trump didn't get that much, but we did avert a tariff war, at least for now. 303-696-1971. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're reviewing yesterday's tariff negotiations. Billy's saying that a lot of these agreements had already taken place previously. Not that big of a deal. I do think they're a big deal. I think they're a big win for America. Text messages coming in. Bill, why would Mexico and Canada allow themselves to look like they bent the knee if they could say they were already doing what Trump asked?
Because they know that with a Trump, appearance is more important than facts, that making him look strong is much more important, and then you can get him to do what you need to. The citizens of Mexico and Canada already know. The way I found out about the Canadian announcement in December was by Canadians on the Twitter and on other areas of social media going, we already did most of this. They were the ones that pointed it out. So they know. So they're letting Trump have his bluster and do his touchdown dance, but they understand what's going on. That's fine. Same reason that Putin recently has been talking about how strong and wonderful Donald Trump is. In fact, he said that the only person I can possibly negotiate with Ukraine is Donald Trump because he's just so darn good at it. He's not doing that out of admiration. He's doing that out of buttering him up. The intelligence information after Trump's first term was that our allies and our enemies knew that flattery gets you everywhere with Trump. You flatter him and he is more likely to give you what you want. So why would you make it a big deal? You want to make Trump wants to look like he won. So let him look like he won. Everybody in Mexico, everybody in Canada knows how actually the game was played. So he did get some things out of him. I'm not saying it's awful, but he did get some things out of it. But I sent you the information. I sent you the press release right now from Canada about the $1.3 billion.
Right. And there's additional things he added onto it. But with regards to Mexico, a lot of this stuff was 2021, 2022. It clearly didn't work.
No, but the agreement's there. What I'm saying is there anything new that Trump has?
Yeah, more serious investment in addressing fentanyl.
And where does it say that, though? Does it say, I mean, there's some work that he's doing, but the large majority of what he said he's going to do already exists. That's the issue, is we don't see anything that is necessarily new. There's no new troops. Mexico already has those troops there. That's what I'm looking at.
I disagree. I'm looking at these articles from 2021, 2022, and I'm seeing Biden negotiate some deals with Mexico. But you're
says
talking
troops.
3 or 4 years ago.
But it does say that Mexico is placing 10,000 troops at the border, and there's an additional 5,000 later. But again,
and I don't know if it worked.
But
I think you've got a new sheriff in town that's going to hold these.
I know the whole new sheriff touchy-feely thing. That's not my point. My point is, where inside the announcement shows us these are new and or additional troops. And I'm not saying they are. I'm not saying they aren't. But so far, I have seen nothing in the announcement from America, official announcements. I don't care what the reporters are writing. Reporters can write all they want. I'm looking for an official announcement from either Mexico or America saying these are new troops. I don't see either one of them saying new troops. And I'm not going to assume they're new troops if they aren't.
It's interesting to me that this new negotiation and deal takes place, and yet because there was some deal struck 3 or 4 years ago that clearly wasn't delivering what it was supposed to do, this current deal is just a continuation of what was already negotiated.
No, what I'm asking for is where's the new?
The whole thing is new.
No,
I think it is.
Again, think is different than knowing. We can think a lot of things, but knowledge is different. Knowledge is different. That's all I'm asking for. I'm just asking for confirmation from either from Mexico or the U.S. that these troops are new. I'm not going to assume they're new troops. I'm not going to assume unless it states that
those previous negotiations that Joe Biden had, particularly with Mexico, weren't working. They just weren't. Like, we literally went through an entire election over this. And so Donald Trump comes in and gets this deal negotiated with Mexico. Yes, the deal is new.
But the deal is new, but I don't see anything about new troops. And your entire answer didn't address that. And let's see if the callers can address that.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to Ken, Denver. Good morning, Ken. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning.
Well, as far as Mexico goes and Canada, even if we have fewer troops, the bottom line is, do we want Biden and Harris back? Do we want the border unsealed? Do we want these countries not taking back their deportees and criminals. So, I mean, even if that's 100% accurate, who is getting the job done? Who's looking out for the American public? Who sealed the border? And everybody, they get on Trump, and it's like, it's Tuesday and he hasn't done anything about inflation. Well, we've had a country that for about 20 years has spent us into oblivion. And thanks to, however, this pandemic, I kind of call it the shamdemic, however it came apart or came to be, ended up further inflating the economy. Everything that people want to complain about that Trump's doing, and let's assume that he's a bit of a showman and, oh, it's bluster, there's no new troops, I need to see it in writing. Well, he's getting it done.
Those troops were there, Ken. Those troops were there already.
I'll give him that. Even
the
even
agreement,
if that's
but
not
Ken,
accurate.
the agreement was there already, and we did see an agreement with
Correct,
Biden and
but I'm
Mexico.
glad that-
Hang on, we did see an agreement with Biden and Mexico
Wait,
that
I
did
did
lower.
hang on.
That it, so that's So it has lowered. I didn't say it was perfect. I didn't say the border was closed. Nor did I say that everything Donald Trump has done is wrong. And I did say that he got. He did get some things right, and he did get some new stuff out of Mexico. But from what I'm reading, the vast majority of it already existed. Why can't we be honest about that? Why is that hard? Why am I somehow just some sort of like negative Nancy and not dealing with reality when I'm pointing out the accuracy? When I'm pointing out what happened beforehand and what the new stuff is? How come that is viewed as some sort of transgression against the God King, Donald Trump? Why?
Well, I don't think he's a God King, but I don't see anybody else wanting to step up on behalf of the American public.
Well, and I think yesterday's
inaccuracy-
conversation was about he doesn't know what tariffs are. We're going to end up in this massive trade war.
Yep.
Everything's going to get more expensive.
Yeah.
Everything's awful. He was supposed to lower grocery costs. Now everything's terrible. And we come out of it 24 hours later with concessions on dealing with the border and addressing fentanyl, and there's no trade war.
Yeah, Trump blinked.
And I could certainly see where
that's just crazy to me that you look at that and go, Trump blinked.
Yeah, he blinked. Sure.
Billy wants to be accurate. That's fair. But when I hear some of these reporters making these outrageous statements, as if it's almost, and some of these people, particularly in the government, as if the old way was so much better. You know, you're hearing about this fraud in U.S. aid. Oh, so we're supposed to waste tax money on stupid stuff. And so I think the American public at large and some of these reporters, they're just looking for the drama of it all instead of the real substance of what's getting done. You know, I used to work for a company, and I've been in situations and people say, well, why'd you say that? And I'd say, I'm about getting it done. That's what I'm about. That's what I think Trump's about.
Yeah, but is it an issue for you at all that most of what he's getting done, according to reporting, was done beforehand? I mean, most of the announcement that Canada made was announced in December. And most of the stuff that Trump got was announced previously under the Biden administration. Is that really getting stuff done? He got some stuff done, but are we going to give him credit for getting all the stuff done when he obviously didn't?
Well, I think this. Politics is kind of a dirty business. And when was basically, and I'm sure there's things here and there, but when was the last time Mexico did anything and they said, we're really here to do a good job for the Americans. We respect them. And these troops that they had, were they really doing their job? I've been to Mexico. Not everybody wants to do their job. They don't say it's mañana for nothing. It's mañana because basically most things down there can wait. Trump, he's not a mañana guy. He's like, now that you even conceding your point without having the facts in front of me, he's shaking things up. He's saying, let's get with the program.
Yep. Ken,
And
I
those
appreciate the call. Thank you. Ken
thanks.
from
Good
Denver.
points.
His line will be open 303-696-1971. Let's go to Bill Aurora. Good morning, Bill. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, morning.
Hey,
William.
good morning,
How are
guys.
you?
How you doing?
Doing good. What's on your mind?
Okay, so I've talked to you guys before, 40 years managing money, retired 12/31, by the way. Thank you very much. So, the tough thing about economics, and I think this is true of most change, is you've got a short-term effect and you've got a longer-term effect. And sometimes those are quite different. And so what we're able to do is see the short-term effect because it happens right on top of us. And it's much harder to discern what's going to happen over the long term. And so I know it's a way of punting around the question about whether Trump's tariff conversations have made any effect. But I think, considering the previous administration's, and I use that in plural, approach to this, I think that Trump's put everybody on notice that there's a new approach to this, and that it's going to be much more America-centric. And I think that's true both of our international relations with the tariffs. I think it's true of Doge. And I think we really just have to kind of wait and see how this thing plays off. But personally, I'm in favor of disrupting these because I think almost all of these government programs were bloated and headed towards additional bloating. And I think this is a good thing.
Yeah, William, with regards to disruption on like spending with USAID, I agree with you. Yesterday's markets, though, didn't respond so favorably because they like consistency, right? Business leaders want a consistent environment to operate in. When you look at the way Donald Trump's willing to negotiate, push and press and change things last minute, it's the exact opposite of consistency. Do you think his tariff negotiations are going to be good for business?
In the long term, I do.
Yeah, I probably agree with you on that one. And
who knows? This is round one. You know what I mean? This is round one, and Trump's doing a lot of bluster and stuff like that. But that's not to suggest that it's not going to have an effect long term. And we have a lot of money. America spends a lot of money around the world, and that's what greases the wheels of all things, including politics. And so I think that
I got a question for you, William.
Yeah, sure.
Got a question for you. What are your feelings so far on the involvement of Musk and Doge, especially dealing with things like USAID and other programs? What is your opinion on how they are going about finding the waste and fraud? And the reporting is that they have shut out the staff of USAID out of the offices, and they've gotten access to how the Treasury has procurements and payments. What do you feel about that as far as people going in there and changes and getting things done and, long-term effects?
In my 40-year career managing money, there were a half a dozen major studies of what we need to do. W.R. Grace, Rostenkowski, I can't even enumerate them all by name. But essentially, none of them made any difference at all. The machinery in Washington continued essentially unabated, and we ended up with bigger deficits, more silly spending. And so I think coming in and just kind of move fast and break things is probably something that needs to happen. In the short term, it's going to look erratic and it's going to have some very bad anecdotes. People lose jobs, all that other stuff. But I think if you don't do it this way, it'll never happen. It's the old saw, can't change.
Got a question for you about the change, about the fulcrum there, the change. Elon Musk is the richest person on the planet. He's also the #1 campaign donor to Donald Trump. He's the #1 single largest recipient of government contracts. Is that the person you would put in charge of finding the waste, fraud, and abuse, and to rectify the problems in the payment system inside the government? Is that the person and the profile you'll be looking for?
Yeah, after reading Isaacson's 700-page biography of Elon Musk, my answer is yes.
Really? So you'd be okay if George Soros got it next time? You'd be okay with that? Because a rich guy, largest contributor to some campaigns, but he doesn't receive the government contracts in level that Musk does. So you're okay with it. You see no problem.
Do you think George Soros would cut things?
No, I'm just asking him. I'm asking about influence, but I'm asking about influence. Are we okay with this? The guy that is the richest person on the planet
I think
has his own
the
social
ends
media.
are part of the conversation here.
Yeah.
So
I'm just
if
curious,
George
is that curious?
Soros is going to drive government spending into all the little programs he does, like doctor-assisted suicide and abortion and the DAs essentially releasing criminals, versus Elon Musk seeking to cut areas of waste, fraud, and abuse, I think they're totally different.
Yeah, but what if he just started? If George Soros came in and cut things, then you're okay with it?
I might be.
Okay.
I've never seen him cut things.
But I thought that question was directed. I thought that question was directed at me.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Wayne. But I'm curious.
Okay, so Bill, you know, I've listened to you for long enough. You made kind of a reasoned logic there that I thought that Musk was the guy to do it because he was rich and because he had influence. That wasn't the reason. The reason was because of his approach to systems and bureaucracies. So it didn't have anything to do with his wealth. It had to do with the way he approaches these things.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how's that worked out so far as Twitter?
I think it's worked out fine.
Yeah.
I think Twitter went from being a bloated bureaucracy that was probably very progressive, left-leaning, and now it's an attempt to be a level playing field, which I think Musk is finding out is a very tough road to hoe.
Wait, level playing field? Walk me through that. Okay. We got to do this a different day. That would be a different one, William. I appreciate
William,
it.
appreciate the
we
call.
can't do
Thanks
the
so
level
much.
playing field because he just spiked another news report yesterday. He's taking people off that he doesn't like people that are reporting.
Out of all of the platforms, it's the one that's the most balanced as far as users, 50-50.
I disagree, but that's okay.
That's what reports.
That's fine.
All right. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. As you can imagine, the debate is spicy today on tariffs. We're going to get to USAID next, but it's that time in the morning where we take a little moment for some levity with Billy's You Choose the News.
Yes, it's that time of the morning where we make questionable decisions. We play America's favorite fake radio news game show, You Choose the News. Yes, nobody has any idea where you're doing this because those in charge are not awake yet. So this is what happens when we are left unsupervised. And remember, shh. It's a secret between all of us, so don't tell anybody about it. Scour the interwebs, dumb stories about us humans, put headlines on them. Blake Olson joining us from the news department, Jeff Hunt in the studio. Gentlemen, here are your stories this morning. Headline number 1, DEI crimes. Headline number 2, not your double-check discount. Headline number 3, don't demonstrate competency. And headline number 4, who knows? Hard to tell. All right.
Who knows? Hard to tell.
Yeah, who knows? Hard to tell. Rwandan President Paul Kagame recently told CNN that he has no idea whether or not country's troops are in the East Democratic Republic of Congo. So hard to keep track of my army. Who knows what they're doing? Nobody has any idea. There's fighting between the M23 armed group and the Congolese soldiers that have killed more than 900 people and injured thousands in recent days. International community observers say Rwanda is backing the M23 rebels. In fact, there's an estimated 3,000 to 4,000 Rwandan soldiers supervised and supporting the M23 fighters in the east of the DRC, outnumbering the rebel group forces in the country. They're trying to get their hands on a very valuable mine at this point. But when asked about it, the Rwandan president said, I don't know. There are many things I don't know, but if you want to ask me, is there a problem in Congo that concerns Rwanda and Rwanda wouldn't do anything to protect itself? I'd say 100%. But again, I don't know where any of those troops are. So that's hard. You're in charge of the country. And
Commander-in-Chief.
Who knows? Yeah, who knows? The Army goes lots of places. They do lots of things. Who knows what they're doing? We have no idea. Yes. Why would you be in charge of a country and know where your military is? That would be stupid. All righty.
Exactly.
Yes.
Let's make sure we send them USAID money.
All right. Blake Olson, News Department. DEI crimes, not your discount double check, or don't demonstrate competency.
DEI crimes.
Yeah, DEI crimes. It's obviously a case of DEI. 2 Metropolitan Washington Airport Authority employees are arrested over the crash that we saw recently. The deadly mid-air collision has led to 2 arrests of Mohammed Laramie Bangenge, of 21 of Rockville, Maryland, along with Jonathan Savoy, 45 of Upper Marlboro, Maryland. Yes, it's obviously, it isn't their fault. The crash isn't their fault, but they've gotten arrested. It's obviously DEI's fault. They've got arrested for computer trespass. What they did is they made unauthorized copies of the airport authority records and then distributed the footage. So some of the footage that you've seen about that aircraft crash, that was stolen from the airport authority.
So these guys, do they work for the air?
Yeah, they worked for the airline. They work for the airline authority. Yeah.
These are like the guys that took pictures of Kobe Bryant's bodies.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
That's exactly it. They worked for the hospital. They worked for this. They worked for these places. Yeah. So that's what they did is they worked for them and they turned around and they downloaded the film and then they distributed it. Don't know if they were paid for it at all. We haven't found any of that. But yes, even if you don't get paid for it, taking it is a crime. So yeah, that's a problem. All righty. Now, Jeff Hunt, final choice this morning, sir. Not your discount double check or don't demonstrate competency.
Not your discount double check.
Yeah, not your discount double check. State Farm fans will know that one, and dumb Aaron Rodgers. Just this week, Tesla announced they've got a tie-in for their Tesla insurance, and you get a discount if you use full self-driving. Drivers can save up to 10% on their Tesla insurance by just calling for 15 minutes. I'm kidding. By using full self-driving for 50% of the time or more. Wow. If you are driving more than half the time with full self-driving mode, Tesla will give you a 10% discount on insurance. And that's going to be a good thing because you're probably going to hit something. Basically, all sorts of studies have shown that Tesla's full self-driving, no full self-driving. In fact, just recently, Tesla Cybertruck under full self-driving accelerated very fast on its own and smashed into a wall.
Yes.
But don't worry, Elon says it'll be fixed by next year. But he's been saying that for every year for the last time.
I still want those Waymos here ASAP, please.
Alrighty, that is the end of You Choose the News. Back to you, sir.
To the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 7 a.m. Mile High City on this Tuesday, February 4th. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You just woke up in the greatest country in history. Let's get to work. We got a whole show planned for you of engaging discussions, critical analysis, but most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. This hour, I want to get into a very important debate on USAID. Is it worth keeping around? Obviously, we want to address waste, abuse, and fraud within USAID. Here's just a list that's come from the White House. $1.5 million to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities. $70,000 for production of a DEI musical in Ireland. $2.5 million for electric vehicles for Vietnam. $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia. $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. $2 million for sex changes and LGBT activism in Guatemala. $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt. Hundreds of thousands of dollars for a nonprofit linked to designated terrorist organizations, even after an inspector general launched an investigation. Millions to EcoHealth Alliance, which was involved in research at the Wuhan lab. Hundreds of thousands of meals that went to Al-Qaeda-affiliated fighters in Syria. Funding to print personalized contraceptives, birth control devices in developing countries, and hundreds of millions of dollars to fund irrigation canals, farming equipment, and even fertilizer used to support unprecedented poppy cultivation and heroin production in Afghanistan to benefit the Taliban. The White House reporting the list goes on, and it's been happening for decades. So, question one, were you aware of the waste, fraud, and abuse taking place? Are you thrilled that Elon Musk, Doge, Trump are diving into USAID and exposing a lot of this? And secondly, a bigger question, even for a guy like me, is do we need to do USAID anymore? Is it worth, when our country is $36 trillion in debt, is it worth sending my money, Bill's money, your money from our taxes to other countries to support them? And where do we draw the boundaries? Extreme famine? Yeah, I think maybe America can help out in those situations. But in developing ongoing requirements where we are constantly funding other countries, providing grain for them, providing whatever else they need from USAID, I'm not sure we need to be doing that in 2025, considering all the challenges we're facing. But I want you to join the conversation. 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. That text line comes right in here to the studio, 720-819-5115. Let's check in on News and Comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, News and Comment.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. And Billy, 23 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 48. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
To the tune of $100 billion or $200 billion, they can't tell yet because it's so corrupt. They don't even know how much money it is. No wonder those people locked themselves in the building and the U.S. Marshals had to kick the door down and drag them out.
Americans get it on social media. USAID is FRAUD. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
And here's the reason why Elon Musk and others have been taking a look. Because if you look at the waste and abuse that has run through USAID over the past several years, these are some of the insane priorities that organization has been spending money on. $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces. $70,000 for a production of a DEI musical in Ireland, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. I don't know about you, but as an American taxpayer, I don't want my dollars going towards this crap, and I know the American people don't either, and that's exactly what Elon Musk has been tasked by President Trump to do, to get the fraud, waste, and abuse out of our federal government.
You can take your money with a twinkle in their eye. Take it all away and give it to some other guy. The government can.
And then there's the bozo Chuck Schumer, who should be in jail.
If Doge attacks USAID today, then you can be sure they'll move on to another target tomorrow. Who knows? Maybe it'll be the Postal Service or the IRS.
Yes.
Or the Social Security Administration.
Yes.
They could be next. Or maybe our National Security Agency.
Thank you. Go ahead. Man, I can't believe he talked about the IRS there. Wow, that guy. Some U.S. products are being hit with tariffs by China in retaliation for tariffs DJT enacted against Beijing. Chinese authorities said overnight that extra tariffs of 15% will be placed on coal and liquefied natural gas, along with 10% on crude oil, farm equipment, and some cars starting next week. DJT has worked a deal with Mexican President Sheinbaum.
Is a woman. I like her very much. We've had good relationships, but we have to stop fentanyl from coming in, whether I like somebody or not, and we have to stop the illegal aliens from coming in. I think we've lost 200,000 people on average a year for many years, much higher than the 100,000, could be even closer to 300,000. And they've agreed to put in 10,000 soldiers permanently, like forever, 10,000 soldiers at their side of the border and stop fentanyl and illegal aliens from coming into our country. They have a big incentive to do. Other than that, we've agreed to talk and consider various other things. We haven't agreed on tariffs.
Trump says he's just trying to make everything fair across the board with everyone, including with Canada, the Panama Canal, Colombia, China so far. Doesn't seem too outrageous to me. El Salvador says it'll house violent U.S. criminals and take in deportees of any nationality. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced the deal after meeting with El Salvador's president, calling it an act of extraordinary friendship. No doubt. Jury selection is underway for the trial of a former Clear Creek County deputy charged in connection with the death of Christian Glass. Andrew Bune was tried last year and found guilty of reckless endangerment. Prosecutors decided to retry him after the jury was unable to reach a verdict on more serious charges, including second-degree murder. Glass was shot and killed in 2022 after he refused to get out of his vehicle after it became stuck near Silver Plume. Jury selection is expected to take several days. The NFL is touting its security ahead of Super Bowl 59. League officials said that the safest place this weekend will be under the security umbrella around the Superdome. The plan includes help from the Department of Homeland Security, which has dispatched nearly 500 FBI personnel in New Orleans to investigate and prevent threats. Nuggets over the Pelicans, 125-113. It is 20 degrees in North Glen right now, 21 in Arvada, and 23 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
It doesn't matter what they look like, how they speak, who they are. It matters intellect, talent. They have to be talented, naturally talented,
geniuses. Blake Olson, News Talk,
You're
710.
a genius, Blake.
Yeah, you are too. 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast, a chilly start across the Denver metro, but sunshine will help us get back to around the mid-50s for highs today. Lows tonight mild in the middle and upper 30s. For Wednesday, stronger westerly winds will provide a downslope and give us temps in the mid-60s. Skies will also be mostly sunny. Breezy winds for Wednesday night with lows in the upper 30s. Thursday and Friday, we're going to drop to the mid-50s, 40s, and a few rain and snow showers this weekend. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, let's talk USAID. It's the United States Agency for International Development, an independent agency of the United States government that is primarily responsible for administering civilian foreign aid and development assistance with a budget of over $50 billion. USAID is one of the largest official aid agencies in the world and accounts for more than half of all U.S. foreign assistance. The highest in the world is in absolute dollar terms. USAID has missions in over 100 countries, primarily Africa, Asia, Latin America, the Middle East, and Eastern Europe. Now, Donald Trump is announcing sweeping changes to USAID. He's ordered a near total freeze of all foreign aid. And Elon Musk, director of the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, has announced the intention of shutting down USAID. So prior to Blake Olson, I read some of the waste, fraud, and abuse. Clearly, that needs to be addressed. Good text message here by 7579. By the list of USAID expenditures that you've given so far today, it's obvious that this money is being used to try to change the culture of some of these countries who would not normally accept transgender ideals. These thinly veiled, quote, cultural events, unquote, are not a good use of our money. I'm in favor of agricultural help, possibly even some programs to help them farm better in their own situations. At the very least, the aid should build goodwill without some kind of agenda behind it. This is the question. I don't think we're disagreeing on the idea of waste, fraud, and abuse and rooting out some of that. Clearly, that should be done. But the question I have for you, Bill, for our listeners, how important is the work of USAID in 2025? And I'll start. I understand a big famine hits, right? Terrible. You remember seeing some of those famines in the 90s in places like Somalia. Awful, right? Can the U.S. come to the aid of folks at those moments? Yes, you also have nonprofits, corporations that can come to the aid of folks like that. But it's 2025. What are we spending $50 billion on? If they can't learn how to farm, I feel like that should be generally easy to teach people how to do. If they don't have water, there's plenty of organizations like Charity Water that can provide drills so that people can get water. And with all the challenges we're facing, $36 trillion in debt. And I'll be the first to admit, I've changed on this. When I was younger, I loved the idea of an America as a force for good in this world, providing resources and help to people and all that stuff. As I've gotten a little bit older and I look at all the challenges we're facing in this country, I go, no, we've got a lot to solve here. Why are we spending $50 billion of American tax dollars in other countries? Bill, your thoughts?
Well, I understand why people are all, upset about the, some things they consider waste, but I didn't hear a lot of fraud inside of that, and I understand that, some of the things that would be classified under DEI, people would think that's abuse, but I'm not sure that would qualify necessarily as government, abuse based on the money. We can upset based on the priorities. Okay, fine. Change the priorities. You don't want to have the stuff for the transgender things. Okay, fine. I still think there's a role for it as far as vaccines, healthcare, things like that. I don't necessarily see the issue that you brought up about, Egypt tourism. Okay, fine. EV vehicles. Okay. I'm not that against those type of things. I can acquiesce on the idea of the sex changes and the transgender because that's something that makes MAGA very angry. Okay, fine. But if we go to Caroline Leavitt and she read that list, that's a tiny list. She outlined $1.6 million. It's not, none of that's fraud. None of that was fraudulent. It was all approved and was given to them. We cannot like it, but it's a $10 billion annual budget. That's
I think it's over 50 billion.
But again, that doesn't make it better. 1.5 million.
That's my bigger question,
but that's
though.
Nothing.
That's
absolutely nothing in the size of it.
50 billion for what?
But again, here's the idea, though. But we've got outlines of what this waste is. Again, not fraud. None of this is fraudulent so far. Although Elon Musk said it was a den of vipers and totally fraudulent. I haven't seen anything so far outline any fraud. We can be upset and say this is wasteful because we don't want to spend on these programs. Fine. But the numbers are minuscule given the total budget. If this was a viper's nest full of all these horrible programs, where's the list? Because the list that Caroline Leavitt gets us is like 0.017% of the annual budget. That's nothing. That's like $17 on every 10,000. Given the size of it, you're not getting huge savings. Because again, this is what I'm coming from. This is horribly wasteful, and we could save money, and we are so in debt, and we're so worried about the debt and the deficit. Okay, that's fine. I'm on board with that. And again, you want to cut out all the transgender stuff? Fine. But I'm not seeing the huge savings. I'm not saying that we're spending $20 billion on that.
I was talking about the $50 billion. I'm talking about the overall work, and we are prioritizing. I mean, we're literally writing a check.
Yes.
And imagine your families going through the budget.
Yeah.
Okay, we have problems with our air conditioner. We got problems with our water heater. We've got issues at our own house.
Yeah.
And we spend $50 billion. And this is one of the largest budget aspects of aid agencies in the world. And counts for more than half of all U.S. foreign assistance.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to like poverty relief, disaster relief, technical cooperation on global issues, U.S. bilateral interests. Like,
seems reasonable. And HIV
so?
help.
I don't at all.
Why not? What's the percentage?
What's the benefit to America?
Goodwill, the idea of charity, keeping people alive, helping other people out, which again is an odd filter because I hear all the time we're a Judeo-Christian founded society. So we don't want charity. We don't want to go out and help people that are in need. These are people that are struggling elsewhere in the world. The HIV work is phenomenal, what they've been able to do. And stop.
Do you think that USAID is the right vehicle? Like, people couldn't donate themselves. Corporations couldn't give. Amazon, Facebook, Dell.
Tell you what, I will agree that we can dissolve USAID soon as Elon Musk writes the first big check to fund it.
Why does he have to be the one that does it?
He's the richest guy on the planet. I know, but
not
you're
necessarily
looking
in cash,
but
in net worth.
He has the most money on the planet. If we're talking about charity, hang on. If we're talking about charity and good deeds, why can I not look to him? That he says this program is bad. Why can't he be the first one to write a check? Why is that a bad expectation? The person that has all the money. Why are we asking you and me and our listeners to be the ones that are going to be this charitable? There are people that can write gigantic. He gave away $1 million.
We're not asking to be charitable.
He gave away.
We're literally forcing Americans to pay.
We made this decision based on JFK and then also Congress putting this into basically picking an executive branch office. And there's some questions there as to whether or not you can kill it with the authorization coming through Congress to begin with. But I'll talk to the phone line here in a second. So that's the idea. The idea of why can't charities do this? Are they? Are they stepping up?
Yeah.
Anything at all? And what I'm looking for is the people that have all the money. Take a start. I will say that USAID is not needed anymore as soon as the people with the money step up and start funding something like this. Right now, they're not. So what I see is it doesn't get done. And I'm okay with us being the person that acts charitably to the rest of the world who's impoverished in certain areas to make sure these people don't die and get some health care and other things they need. Fine. Take away the transgender stuff. I'm not going to fight that.
Yeah,
Fine
but
with that.
I think we're,
Fine.
but again, it's not the 1960s when this thing was created, 1961. It's 2025.
Yeah.
And if a country in Africa hasn't figured out how to take care of its own people in 2025, then they're just dependent upon the U.S. for aid at this point. And it's become a welfare system.
Does that mean they're not in need?
I get if there's like a momentary moment of famine, and I've said that I think that's fine. Here's Donald Trump talking about USAID initially.
The first term, though, USAID was something that you liked in some respects.
I love the concept of it.
Had some programs.
Sure. I love the concept, but they turn out to be radical left lunatics. And the concept of it is good, but it's all about the people.
See, I think originally people in America were like, yeah, okay, if we can help places like Africa, Asia, South America that are going through a terrible situation, a famine, sure. America can be there to help. But we're now looking at an agency that's been around for 63 years that has only gone up in its spending. We're now at $50 billion. And from my perspective, countries have become dependent upon USAID, not self-sufficient. And with all the challenges we're facing in this country, I'm not sure why it's our job to spend our money to use the power of government to force taxpayers not to give charitably, but to be forced via taxes to fund these support efforts in other countries. I don't think it's America's role. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Want to talk to you about my good friend Dan Caplis and Dan Caplis Law. I've known Dan for well over a decade. He's pro-life, pro-America, pro-faith. He is pro-family. He's a great guy. And that matters because who you choose to represent you in an injury case is going to say a lot about you to everyone else involved in the case. Dan Caplis, the son of a police officer and a former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. It gets even better. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. In fact, Dan Caplis Law is so trusted that he's the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So chances are you're not in a car accident right now. You're like, oh, here comes Dan Caplis' phone number. Perfect. But when that happens, do you want to be Googling and trying to find Dan Caplis Law? No, just put him in your contact right now. Here's the phone number. I'm going to give it to you. Okay. Dan Caplis Law, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplis.law.com to learn more. That's Dan, CAPLIS law.com. Phone lines are starting to light up as well as the text messages. Is USAID worth it? Is it an important part of America's role on the global stage to care for people, or has it become a welfare dependency program where countries aren't developing themselves and are essentially dependent upon it? Give me a call. Join the conversation, 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. What do you think of the idea? A front for fraud, a waste of American taxpayer dollars, a force for good in this world? Well, it's across the spectrum, and our text messages reflect that as well. 6823. Good morning, guys. Can you tell me another country that taxes its citizens to give resources to the United States? It's a good point. 8794. Charity starts at home. We have people in this country suffering, and until all poverty is banished in this country, we should not be giving money to anybody else. Do you agree with that, Bill?
No, because what would that do based on your own giving? There are a lot of people that wouldn't necessarily say we've covered all of our expenses, but they write the check and send the money to the church. There are people in my congregation, see, dropping money in the basket that I know they're not independently wealthy. I know they have the same budgetary struggles that all of us do, but it's not about the fact that, all my problems are taken care of. Now I can be charitable. It's not what God calls us to do.
Do you think, but that's charity. We're talking about using the power of government to force people to pay taxes and then take that tax money and provide it to resources outside of this country. Like, do you think that's America's role?
Well, I disagree with the idea of when you're using the word force inside of there. Part of our social contract.
You don't pay your taxes,
but it's part of our social contract. We've decided that as a community, we've decided as a citizenry, that's how we're going to raise money for the government. That's basically it. It's not a dictator coming through and saying, and shaking you down. It's not. You're not going to the sheriff in Nottingham and asking to enter the town. No, not necessarily. There are rules and outlined, and what we've decided, and we've set up these rules as a society. That's fine. If you want to go behave by different rules, either change the rules here or go to a different society. That's fine. That's what we've decided. And fine. If again, I just disagree with the idea of using it as forced. I believe that loads the language and the conversation. But yeah, I think it is acceptable for the U.S., a company that is more wealthy than most other nation on the planet, to spend some of that money and to help other countries that are less fortunate than we are. I have no problem with that, especially when we are focusing on things like, health and education and vaccines. I'm okay cutting out the transgender stuff. Fine. That's not what I'm arguing. I'm talking about programs that help with vaccinations, things that help with HIV treatments, and even then having access to contraception and birth care, that birth control, that is important in those areas, because in some ways that's also healthcare. Because some of those things prevent communicable diseases. It's not the idea of preventing the babies from being born, it's preventing the moms from being sick, because the guys sometimes are sick with stuff that passes along. So I'm okay with that.
Being $36 trillion in debt doesn't affect, like, we can't pay our bills here.
Yeah.
We can't pay our bills for what we're doing in this country, and yet we're sending money to other countries.
Yeah, and so are people that sit inside of churches and have credit card debt and everything else. Yeah, that happens. That happens. We do this all the time. We run as a deficit. Yes, and what I find ironic is that of all the choices that MAGA is presenting us with, it's the charity one they want to do away with. The people that talk, the people that talk, it is charity because we're giving this to the other countries. Yes, it is charity. Yes, it is the U.S. doing this. Yes. And what I find is interesting is that this isn't okay. The people that talk about, well, how are we caring for the youngest of us, making sure that we all go to church, the guys that trump and thump their Bibles and talk about the evangelical movement inside this country. Yet when the U.S. is going out there helping people that are less fortunate, that's not okay. We need to cut there. You can't find anywhere else to cut. And nothing else. We can't reduce defense spending. We can't
military.
We can't. Yeah. So this is the odd portion for me, is that, and again, and it's been identified by whom? Oh yeah, the richest guy on the planet. He's saying we shouldn't go out there and help the countries that are less fortunate than us and do some charity work. That's an odd filter, again, given all the things that we hear about how we are a Judeo-Christian nation, all the things about what God is calling us to do, all the things that we talk about our
house is in order.
Yeah.
So it's a prioritizing and getting what we can control right. And then the idea that this is just charity, Bill, this is the IRS and the tip of a gun forcing you to give up your hard-earned money. Sure.
No one gets shot.
Why does the IRS have ammunition?
Why do they?
Yeah, why does the IRS have ammunition?
Yeah, when all this thing went around, the IRS outlined that. That's okay.
Why is it?
Because not all agents are armed. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if the IRS isn't forcing people to pay at the tip of a gun, why do they have ammunition?
Because they're involved in going into crime like money laundering. And when they're involved in those type of busts, yes. But the IRS agent that shows up at your business or at your office or at your home isn't armed.
Right. And what happens if you disobey him?
There are some consequences based on fines and possible jail time. No one gets shot.
And what happens if you don't go to jail?
What do you mean?
What happens if you're like, I'm not going to jail?
They pick you up and they take you to jail.
What happens if you refuse and fight them? Like, I don't want to be picked up.
Okay, so now you're fighting with the police. Okay.
So there's a gun at the end of that.
No, only if you decide that here's the idea is.
And then we're going to take that money and hand it to Mozambique?
Yeah, why not? What's the problem? Again, given your Christian attitude, this is the problem that I have. I don't understand.
It's not
I don't understand the idea. Again, I don't understand the idea of taking some of our largesse and giving it to countries that are less fortunate, and somehow that's a problem.
Because we're $36 trillion
and I'm hearing this from people that want to hang 10 commandments in our schools as if that's going to fix the kids. But the one thing we can't do is make sure kids on the other side of the planet are healthy.
I don't think it's right to force somebody else. Like if I want to give money to Mozambique, fine. There's no problem with it. No one on the conservative side is saying you can't give money to Mozambique. What they don't like is that in the midst of $36 trillion in debt, I'm going to force that other person to give up their hard-earned money, not to benefit their own community, but to go to another country that is dependent on it and won't figure out their own problems. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Brian Arvada. Good morning, Brian. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning. Another spirited debate. And, the thing is, the press secretary, she only identified a few of the most egregious parts of waste. And she does a soundbite like Trump does, just to get our attention towards it. There's going to be more to come. This isn't the only little programs that are being
Brian, I think we got a bad connection, but I'm going to repeat what you said. Call back in real quick, please. I'd love to have you on. What Brian was saying was that you're going to find out more. This is the initial stuff that you saw out there. We will find out more. Brian, call back in. Hopefully we can get a better connection. Marcus, Denver. Good morning, Marcus. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hey, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, guys. I like Elon Musk. He's not taking sides. What I like about it, he's showing where the money's being spent at. And wait till he gets to the education department. Even we didn't know where that money was going to until now. That's what amazes me.
Yeah.
I disagree. Elon Musk is absolutely choosing sides. He chose Donald Trump's side. He's Donald Trump's largest political donor. And now he's part of Donald Trump's administration. He's not doing this out of the goodness of his heart. He came in as part of the administration. Donald Trump set up a special office for him. He's not doing this and being apolitical.
Well, I understand this, but he's just showing the facts. Here's the data. You make the decision.
No, he's not doing that at all. No, Marcus, he's not doing that. He's saying that U.S. aid needs to be ended. He came out and said,
I know he's saying that now.
But he's saying this is a viper's nest. You just a minute ago said that he wasn't taking a position. He said, here are the facts. No, he has taken public positions on this. In fact, when the number of the people that he has brought over from Tesla and his other companies, SpaceX, those people he brought in under Doge, and he has them now working through USA aid, and he's also going through the computer systems of the Treasury Department. They are now technically government employees. They should be subject to some of the same ethics requirements that government employees are. Elon Musk spiked a story yesterday on Twitter that identified who those people are, just identified them. And he called the reporter he called the reporter out and said the reporter had committed a crime. By simply publishing the people that are working with Elon Musk at Doge that are working on U.S. aid and the funding of the Treasury have access to all sorts of private information about you and I, bank routing numbers, social security numbers. The one thing Elon Musk doesn't want is for us to know who those people are. Like, again, this is not a guy who's there for any altruistic reason, Marcus. This is a guy, he has a play. He's looking to gain something from this. And again, he contributed to the Donald Trump campaign, was placed into a position of high authority, and now given control without any congressional oversight. This is not someone that is being a fair arbiter of the truth, in all honesty.
Well, I'm just happy he's there to see where the taxpayers' money is being spent. We've got money for the foreigners, the immigrants, and yet our people are doing without. Even our natural disasters are not being taken care of. And this is terrible.
Yeah.
And,
Marcus, I agree with you. When you see what happened in
it.
North Carolina, you see the fires out in Los Angeles. This is terrible stuff. And look, this is no different than what happened in Denver, right? Where the mayor said, 40,000 illegal immigrants, come on in. And we're going to provide lawyers. We're going to provide debit cards. We're going to provide 6 months of housing for you. Oh, by the way, we need to raise sales taxes in order to pay for all this. So you, the American people, you, the people of Denver, are going to pay for all these services we're going to provide. Meanwhile, nobody wants to visit downtown Denver anymore. We can't take care of our own. And it is that mixed up priority that frustrates me, where I go $50 billion to USAID in 2025. All right. I understand. And I've always given the caveat. If it's a terrible famine, yeah, America could be there to help. But if you haven't learned how to farm, if you haven't learned how to drill a well, if your country is so backwards that you're dependent constantly on the United States American taxpayer in order to live, then get off the dependency, figure it out yourself, because that's the best future. Now, with that caveat, Marcus, I got these text messages coming in. Hey, this is soft power, Jeff. If we don't provide support to these countries, China's going to step in. We'll lose our place in the world. What's your response to that?
Good. Let them take over the cost. It'll break them.
I kind of feel the same way too. It's kind of like what happens when the United States, you end up having to spend more and more and more money to try to subsidize all this. I think it kind of does break them.
If you don't take care of yourself, how can you help others? And we're not talking about, I care about helping the children and everything. Start sending back to Peace Corps. You know, we'll teach you how to farm. We'll teach you this. We'll teach you. See, it's just getting out of hand.
Marcus, I agree with you. Great call. Thanks so much. Marcus's line will be open 303-696-1971. Look, do you know a high school student who has a passion for engaging in cultural and political issues? The knowledge and skills needed to impact the world through civic engagement is an ever-increasing need in today's society. Colorado Christian University is at the forefront of meeting this crucial need, equipping the next generation of competent, convictional Christian leadership in American politics. CCU's degree program in politics with an emphasis in public policy prepares students for the complex challenges of modern politics in an unapologetically Christian and foundationally conservative worldview. In this distinct program, students learn how to impact public policy and advance Christian conservative ideas. Colorado Christian University also houses the Centennial Institute, a think tank committed to mobilizing ideas on faith, family, and freedom to strengthen America's future. CCU's mission to produce graduates who impact the world with grace and truth applies in no greater measure than to our politics and public policy program. Apply today at ccu.edu/apply. That's ccu.edu/apply. We'll continue with your phone calls and a lot of texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Big debate raging this morning on USA. I don't think Billy and I disagree on waste, fraud, and abuse. If that's happening, address it, of course. But my bigger question is whether or not spending $50 billion a year of taxpayer dollars when we're $36 trillion in debt going to other countries. I mean, this thing was founded in the 60s, 61 is the best thing to do. Text messages coming in, guys, going, look, if we're not out there influencing via soft power, China's going to step in. But to me, that just sounds like the same arguments we had in the 60s with communism. We went to Vietnam, wasted a bunch of American lives there, and that didn't work. And then we went to Afghanistan and Iraq twice and wasted a bunch of American lives there. They're just as backwards as they always were. So this fear that somehow China, if we don't step in, we spend all these resources, China's going to... Sorry, I'm just burned. I'm just burned on the last 50 years of trying to do this. Let's go to the phone lines. Ron, Denver. Good morning, Ron. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Ron Greeley. Hey.
What's on your mind, Ron?
Well, I'm trying to find out as far as what you guys were saying. You know, when I hear Bill talk lately, it's always a complaint. Obviously, he doesn't like Trump. That's fine, not a problem. However, it's the ball is now in the Republicans' hands. It used to be in the Democrats' hands. When the Democrats were running things, I never heard so much crying as I do now, and it's been a month, barely approaching a month. And it's like, get used to it because here we go, right? And what you just said, Jeff, is so spot on. Let China come in, let them do whatever they want to do. Then they're going to end up realizing that they're wasting their time and wasting their money as well. And whatever happened, as far as what that one other caller said, how, you got to take care of yourself before you try to take care of anybody else. And how many homeless people do we have? How many people, starving children do we have? And you always see all these fundraisers going to other countries to help them out. And they're stepping over our homeless to get to where they need to go. I'm tired of it. And I think a lot of Americans are tired of it. We need to start worrying about our own.
So, Ron, I'm hearing from you that you would prefer that the U.S. aid money be spent here at home on homeless programs and things like that, correct?
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
Okay, fair enough.
That'd be fantastic.
Now,
well, don't you agree?
I think that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I do believe that we can. I do believe, but I disagree. Just because the homeless problem isn't solved doesn't mean that some of the programs aren't working. Also, just because we haven't necessarily eradicated the HIV virus from the rest of the planet doesn't mean that U.S. aid isn't helping keep that at bay in countries around the world. It doesn't mean that some of the outreach doesn't help nor impact lives. So I understand that idea behind you. But the idea of us taking care of only what we have here at home, I still, just yesterday we had people that were upset about, we didn't want to acquiesce stuff to China, but we're mad about Hong Kong and China building ports on either side of Panama. That's what's going to happen. Because if we aren't there doing aid in these countries, when those opportunities come up, they're going to be given to China. And now we're saber rattling over what's happening in China based on Panama, an agreement they signed in 2017 when Donald Trump was last in office. It was the Roads and Bridges Initiative inside of Panama. So the idea is, if we're okay with pulling back the aid and letting China come in and fill that gap, then you need to be okay with things like China building ports on either side of the Panama Canal in the future, because that's going to happen. Okay, tell me what the point is.
The point is, I'm not saying let's never do this. I'm saying let's take care of us first. Then once we're good and we no longer have the weeds growing in the grass in our backyard, then we could go help our neighbor take care of their weeds. But we've got to take care of ours first. Then once we have that in control, let's go help. And you're saying, well, that's not necessarily true, that there are homeless that are being helped. but you still see a ton of them, a lot of them that are not being helped, which means we haven't accomplished our goal yet. Once our goal is accomplished, I have zero argument from what you're saying.
Now, Ron, we are one of, if not the most prosperous countries on the planet, correct?
No, we're $36 trillion in debt.
No, but don't we have? We're one of the most prosperous countries. We hear that all the time.
Yeah, there's no arguing that.
Yeah.
So you're still missing the point as far as our homeless, right?
What I'm looking for, Ron, is how much is enough? When do we know? We have created.
When we know that we can walk outside, and especially in places like New York, California, where you're not seeing people housed under bridges, when you're not seeing all these lines of very old motorhomes parked along the side that people are living in. That's when we'll know.
Ron,
okay, fair enough.
Great call.
I disagree,
Appreciate it. Phone lines are full. Jump in real quick. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 8 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, February 4th, 2025. You tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. And in case you're tuning in for the very first time, this morning, especially this last hour and continuing to this next hour, is exactly what the show is designed to be, which is spicy debate from the right, left, and center. We have absolutely jam-packed phone lines. We have text messages blowing up. We are debating USAID. And I have read a series of wasteful programs that USAID is spending money in. But my bigger question, and I admit I have changed on this because I was a neocon. In grad school, I wrote letters to the editor and op-eds in my grad school publication about how absolutely critical the war in Iraq and Afghanistan were to advance democracy for people that had never tasted that type of freedom. And then I watched my friends go off and die in those wars. I watched millions, billions of dollars be spent. And within days of withdrawing from Afghanistan, the Taliban's back in control. Little girls are kicked out of school. No desire to embrace American values. And I hate what we have lost there. And so when I see $50 billion a year being spent through USAID on what could be, in some cases, good programs, and I've always given this caveat: if we're addressing emergency situations, if we're addressing famine, starving people, is there a role for the United States to help? Absolutely. But when we're spending $50 billion a year in 2025 trying to help a country get off the ground and they can't figure it out, they need to figure it out themselves. I believe there's plenty of charities, plenty of corporations that would be willing to help them. And I just don't buy the soft power idea anymore that if we're not there, China's going to be there. Because that's just an excuse to be in every country spending our dollars when we're $36 trillion in debt. I've changed. I'm over it. I want USAID closed. What do you think? Let's go to Brian Arvat, and then we'll get to Blake Olson in the news. Brian, we get a better connection.
Oh, yeah, I think you're good, Brian. Let's see if this connection holds up, man.
Different, by the way.
Different Brian, but we might have another bad connection here. Go ahead, Brian.
Different Brian, but same bad connection.
Hey, it's all the administrative state, guys. It's a money laundering scam. You look at when they tried to get rid of the homeless program here, just say in Denver. The administrator takes like 70 to 80% of the money. The people only get like 15 to 20%. And you got organizations like Tunnel to Tower that only take.
We lost Brian there, but what Brian's critique is what is a critique of what's called the poverty industrial complex, which means that many of these entities, they may be faith-based, but exist to take those government funds, spend a small portion on actually solving the homeless, never actually really motivated to end homelessness, but to collect paychecks for the staff that support the homeless. And it's a fair critique, and some of these organizations have been exposed for being fraudulent. Brian, I'm sorry the connection wasn't there. Let's check in on News and Comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, News and Comment.
All right, thanks a lot, Jeff. And Billy, 23 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 48. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story: critical committee votes will be held today for Trump cabinet picks. RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard both talked with GOP senators over the weekend, whose votes will be vital to move them forward in the confirmation process. Gabbard and Kennedy will need every single Republican vote. Some U.S. products are being hit with a retaliatory tariff and tariffs by China. Beijing said overnight that it'll charge extra tariffs if of 15% on coal and liquefied natural gas, along with 10% on crude oil, farm equipment, and some cars starting next week. Over the weekend, Trump signed off on 10% tariffs on China, in addition to existing 25% tariffs applied in his first term. And J.D. Vance in Ohio discussing the tariffs on Canada.
Do Americans realize that the Canadians charge massive tariffs on our products that go into the country of Canada, including on our great agricultural products that people right here in the state of Ohio depend on? Well, if the Canadians are going to use their economic power to penalize Americans, I think it's totally reasonable for the American president to say, we're done being taken advantage of. We, of course, want to have a great relationship with Canada, but that goes both directions.
And Scott Jennings back at it on CNN, educating Washington Post reporter Catherine Rampel.
I mean, I don't know what Trump wanted in this situation. Again, he didn't actually get anything. But if he were to put these tariffs in place, they would be very painful for American consumers. Okay, Scott. I mean, this is
the total lie.
This is public information.
He got what he wanted. He got an agreement from our neighbors to do more on the border. That's what he wanted, and he got it.
Exactly what they have already been doing.
I understand you're the minister of propaganda tonight, but you don't have to be. You could just say, "Hey, all's well that ends well." Here, come on.
If you don't know that these countries are committing to do exactly what they have already been doing, either you haven't done your homework or you think the American people are idiots. Because again, they're doing
or option
exactly
three. Donald Trump is enforcing what needs to be done at the border, which is more help from our friends. They are our allies and they are important people, but they need to help us, and they've not been helping us, and now they're going to help us even more.
They have been.
But the point is that it's also
ask every family with a fentanyl death how much they've been helping.
Sounds like the 6 o'clock hour of the Jeff and Bill show.
Yeah, it did.
That was literally the same line of arguments between Billy and I.
Absolutely. I was thinking the same exact thing. I was hoping you got that.
We just need to go to CNN, apparently.
Crew, let's get our cameras going and then we'll be good. Crews are still working to recover some of the remains from last week's midair collision in D.C. Officials have identified 55 of the 67 of those killed in the crash. Crews are expected to remove the cockpit of the plane from the Potomac at some point today. El Salvador will accept violent U.S. criminals and take in deportees of any nationality. Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
I gotta ask you this question.
Yeah.
So these countries have agreed to take back these violent guys.
Mm-hmm.
Venezuela, El Salvador, Colombia. What do you think is going to happen to them in those countries?
Well, okay, the other countries, I'm not so sure. They're going to be they're going to be on the street. But El Salvador, I've been watching this for the past year. That president is incredible, man.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've seen the prisons there.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, and they have rehabilitated him. And I mean, it was just an absolute train wreck. I mean, it was so violent and dangerous there, and he has cleaned up that country. I mean, it is incredible.
He's willing to take back U.S. criminals in exchange for a fee. Mm-hmm. Some of those. I mean, think about maybe not those countries, maybe not El Salvador, but some of the other countries like Venezuela, the rest of them. Now you're getting like the worst, just dumped back onto your. Welcome to how America's felt the last decade or so. But
absolutely.
I don't see Venezuela, for instance, giving much quarter to those guys.
Well, I agree. I would say that, I mean, if we could send all of them there to El Salvador, it'd be a better world. I mean, it doesn't matter where they're from. If they're from here, I mean, it is incredible what they've done, man. When you just look at the prisons, and I mean, it probably wouldn't be able to get away with it here, of course, but
that was George Soros funded DAs.
Exactly. Absolutely. But I think this is pretty big, honestly, when it comes down to it. King Soopers employees from across the Denver area are planning to strike on Thursday morning after failed union negotiations with the chain. Local shopper Jade Floyd says that she hopes the strike doesn't make it difficult for Coloradans to go grocery shopping.
We would love for our grocery stores to stay open.
And we'll see what happens. UFCW Local 7 President Kim Cordova said they are holding this strike for a 2-week period to allow everyone to understand our concerns and give the employer time to right their wrong. All right, Nuggets over the Pelicans, 125-113. The Avalanche back in action tonight against Vancouver, 20 in Aurora, 21 in Westminster, 23 in Denver. Jeff and Bill, you continue.
Hold on, I'm rearranging my bucket of cervezas.
Blake Olson, News Talk 7. I love that one.
I have a hard time believing this.
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast, a chilly start across the Denver metro, but sunshine will help us get back to around the mid-50s for highs today. Lows tonight mild in the middle and upper 30s. For Wednesday, stronger westerly winds will provide a downslope and give us temps in the mid-60s. Skies will also be mostly sunny. Breezy winds for Wednesday night with lows in the upper 30s. Thursday and Friday, we're going to drop to the mid-50s, 40s, and a few rain and snow showers this weekend. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's go to the phone lines here. We're discussing USAID. Man, jam-packed phone lines. If you can't get through at 303-696-1971, text us on the Dan Caplis Law Text line at 720-819-5115. No disagreement between Bill and I addressing the waste, fraud, and abuse that may exist within USAID, even taking off the table the for Bill's perspective, the LGBTQ trans stuff that's happening out there. No disagreement there. Where there is disagreement is I just think with the challenges our country's facing, spending $50 billion in other countries in 2025 is not the best use of our money. Bill finds it as an important form of compassion, kindness, and soft power. So where do you fall along the lines? Let's go to Rusty, Denver. Good morning, Rusty.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I would characterize it as USAID not being closed necessarily, but being under new management, and they need to rebrand. And I think it's going to require taking not a sledgehammer to it, but taking a dental pick to it, because I don't have too much in the way of specifics, but I'm sure there are a lot of worthwhile programs in there, and I'm sure there are a lot that are, tremendous waste. So I heard about one, for instance, that's education and, supporting schools in Syria. And if that has American branding on it, and it's giving us a positive identity in that part of the world, I think it's probably a good thing. But the LGBT stuff is, a little bit too far. So that's basically.
But Rusty, we're
want.
$36 trillion in debt. We are
so
over leveraged. It's like imagine your kid has a Maserati, a Lamborghini, and you can't afford it, and now all of a sudden they want to give money to some aid organization. Why don't we deal with our own debt problems first?
I'm not disagreeing with you, and I'm not agreeing with you. I'm just saying it needs to be a like I said, take a dental pick at each individual program. But I wonder, some of those programs and things that you think we should spend the money on here in the United States, we've already thrown a hell of a lot of money at homelessness and this and that. And is that just good money after that? I don't know.
Rusty, to that point, we have spent more money just since the Great Society was created, that endeavor in the 60s, on social welfare programs than all the wars combined in this country.
Right.
Okay? And people are dependent upon it. And going back to a previous caller, you have an entire poverty industrial complex that people get paid. They're not given bonuses if they get people out of poverty. It's just become a job for them, so they just perpetuate it. We have more people in poverty. We have more people dependent on our welfare programs. We've spent trillions of dollars on this, and it's not helping.
Right. I think we could save 150,000 by firing Mike Johnson. That might be the first step to save money.
Mike Johnson or Mike Johnston, or maybe both.
Johnston.
Okay.
Our mayor.
Yeah. No, Rusty, I sure appreciate the call. Thanks so much.
Rusty.
Rusty's line will be open.
I can agree with Rusty on the idea of going through and trying to find it through a dental pick, but that's where I push back. And again, text messages aren't going to like me for this, on the Elon Musk. He just said the whole thing needs to be shut down. He's not going through there with a dental pick and saying this program's bad, this program's bad. He's just saying shut it all down. So he's not doing what Rusty is advocating for. And that's part of the reason that I push back on that. I don't think that he has proven his case that it is just a bed of vipers and full of fraud.
I disagree with the idea of the dental pick too. Because I've been around government enough in my 20+ year career in it to know that dental picks don't fix anything. When it comes to government, you have to starve the beast. You have to destroy the programs. It requires drastic and dramatic changes. Otherwise, these stupid little government programs continue to persist. They never actually solve any problems. And we pass the debt load off to our children and grandchildren. This is going to collapse someday. We can't keep doing $36 trillion and adding debt upon debt upon debt while feeding other countries and expect this to work out.
On a side question, what would be your solution for the, and again, not a discussion we're going to have, but I'm just wondering,
debt?
Yeah. What would be your solution to start paying off our enormous debt? Just, thumbnail sketch.
So 2 things.
Yeah.
One, you need to increase revenues. You increase revenues by lowering taxes.
No, you don't, but that's okay.
Yeah, I know. You and I could go around and around on that one.
Yeah.
I think you end up with higher revenues coming in with lower taxes because you empower the free market. Okay. And then second, you have to starve the beast. You have to starve the government in order to do this. And that's why I like what Elon Musk is doing. All right. Who are we taking next?
Iggy.
We're doing Iggy. Erie. Good morning, Iggy. You're on the Jeff and Bill show.
Hey, Iggy. Nice to hear from you. What's up?
Yeah, gentlemen, I'm afraid that you're heading down the wrong rabbit hole when it comes to USAID. Okay. Back after World War II, when the CIA was playing around in Southeast Asia, because keep in mind the nationalist Chinese army split in 2, part of them going into Burma, into that triangle area. That's where they got started with their opium poppies and taking heroin out of there. So in 1961, the CIA established USAID. It was run by former CIA officers like Edward Lansdale and those guys. Okay, so yes, you can talk in terms of they do provide support to countries, but the biggest thing they used it was one of their ways to bribe chieftains and villages in South Vietnam, or funnel cash into generals or lieutenant colonels or majors in South Vietnam, with USAID. Also, even today, when they give a lot of aid to like people in Africa, do you think it actually goes directly to the starving people in Africa? No, it gets put into a warehouse, and the people in control end up distributing or most likely selling it the way they want to. Okay. Part of the deal, what they found out recently with USAID, is they were making payments to government or to journalists, supposedly, in the United States to support whatever they wanted to do. It's just like, and also I need to tell you, the State Department was also dipped their toe in the USAID. So that's basically what it is. It goes back to when the CIA wanted to nation build and put the people in government as they did. Okay, so you focus on its helping other countries, which it does. and beyond. And so you are talking in those terms that that's what it is. And that's what the CIA wants you to think. That's why it was established that way.
Yeah, Iggy, I think you're right on a lot of that. I remember visiting some of these USAID operations because we were doing some anti-famine, anti-poverty work in the southern, eastern parts of Africa. And I remember seeing these big, huge storehouses of grain. And I just remember thinking, this is just, I didn't see the corruption, but you just sit there and go, you have this huge resource of grain sitting there, and you're trusting local government officials to distribute it and to not give it away to their friends or ask people to buy it or their family members. Well, it just seemed like the whole thing was like, man, this just seems ripe for corruption.
Well, that's exactly what it is. That's their bank account.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, if you want to be in control in a impoverished country, one of the ways to control your population is how you feed them.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
You don't want a whole lot of people getting food in there from somebody else. So,
Iggy, I appreciate the call. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Iggy from Erie, his line will be open, 303-696-1971. Let's go to our friend in Divide, Dwayne. Good morning, Dwayne. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. A few things here on your comments, very entertaining. Bill, why does Elon Musk have to give $1 for anything? It's his money. He can do whatever he wants. Why does he have to make a donation?
No, what I'm saying is that if we're truly the idea of charity and that we want to take away USAID, then let's look at the charity. And why don't we start with a member of the Trump administration that is the richest man on the planet, and he can start with the first check. Before we're asking the charity of you, myself, Jeff, any of the rest of our listeners, before we are looking at opening up our checkbooks, last time I checked, Elon could fund it probably in whole as far as a trust fund, and he could just in perpetuity make sure that it is funded. But then, and that's the idea. If we're looking at charity taking this place, the person that has the most leverage ability to do that right now is him. So if we're serious about charity taking the place of USAID, and Elon Musk thinks it is such a cesspool, I'm looking for him to make the first step. That's the reason. That's the reason, man. That's it.
Well, you see, he doesn't have to. My world at one time was 10,000 feet. Right. My world was 10,000 feet. And I told the person yesterday, my world is 5 feet. My son and myself, that's it. I might help a friend out. Well, I help a neighbor, and I do some things around the community here in our little area. And we take care of ourselves. If somebody can't get to the store, we'll sit there and say, hey, I can pick you up on Saturday at 10. Does that work for you? Do you need another day? We take care of ourselves. But with all the waste that's going on, and Jeff, please, was it $15 or $50 million going towards Al-Qaeda for condoms and contraceptives? I mean, aren't the goats pretty well protected as it is? They really don't need condoms, do they?
To that point, I used to joke that I'm not a cowboy because I don't own cows, right? I own goats. And so I said, well, I'm a goat boy. And I had guys from Afghanistan vets go, Jeff, don't ever say that again. We've seen it firsthand in Afghanistan. Not good.
But let's, Dwayne, do you not think that people that are involved in the Taliban there should have access to birth control measures? Their government's not going to give it to them. Should we make it available to them?
Why can't their government give it to them?
No, but should we make it available to them?
Make it available?
No.
Why?
Okay.
Why can't the Afghanistan government do it?
Here's the thing, guys, and I hate this. I don't want to be in the endowment for the arts. I don't think USAID has sat there, and it may have had a noble purpose at one time. Sounds like from the gentleman from Erie, maybe not as noble as we think. But we need to start looking at everything and going, enough. I've had enough. I don't want to support another person. Again, my world is 5 feet. At one time, it was 10,000 feet. And when I was in Salvador for 6 years doing things, that country is such a beautiful country. It is. And now hopefully this new president is doing things. But I saw things down there that would absolutely remove Jeff's hair after the new implants. I mean, it is absolutely, I mean, seriously, I say it with a comedic side, but the acidic items that I've seen, and Bill, listen, I love you. I do. I love both you guys. You're great. But it doesn't mean because I have money, I need to sit there and make a donation. I take care of my disabled Navy veteran. That's my neighbor. I take care of him because it's a responsibility I take as a fellow brother.
So,
but I take care of the
I
people.
get it,
around me.
Dwayne, I get it. I'm just saying that if charity begins at home, if we're going to take away USAID, then I'm thinking that maybe the guy that has the most money in America could start with the first check. That doesn't seem unreasonable if we are saying that charity starts at home. If he doesn't want to write that check, that's fine. Go right ahead. But then I disagree with the idea that charity will fill the vacuum if USAID goes away. That's kind of that's the bromide that I'm putting up here.
But
is the vacuum going to be filled? And he doesn't have to. But even by your agreement, I don't think he fills it. So I don't think that's an argument that USAID goes away. USAID goes away. That's all I'm doing, man.
Well, what I see more than anything else is the best charity is a job.
Yeah,
as long as you can sit there and make a living and support yourself.
And self dependence, which these countries have to learn, or they're going to always depend on whatever big countries in control, whether it's China or the United States, to support them. But Dwayne, I want to ask you this, and Bill, I want to ask you this, because this was JD Vance brought this up, and I watched X explode, especially in the Christian X world on this. Okay, JD Vance was talking about ordered love and the notion of ordered love within his Catholic faith, which is you take care of your family, you take care of your community, then you go out there and take care of other nations. And his critique was the left has flipped it. So they'll run out there and they'll take their money and they'll spend it in Mozambique, but Portland, Los Angeles, San Francisco, they're all hellholes. And their own people are suffering. And many people on the left can't even build a stable family, but they're willing to spend tax dollars in a foreign land. Do you agree that there needs to be an ordered love, especially from a Christian perspective?
He's wrong. Exactly. JD Vance is wrong about that based on the teachings and the catechism of the church. That's it. Well, it's not something we're going to go into today based on, it doesn't help the conversation, the arguments. But the bottom line is the way that he outlined it, he's wrong. He's wrong based on the teachings of the church. He's wrong based on the position of the church. He's wrong based on what the Pope says. He's wrong. I don't know if he is a Catholic or not, but the way that he set it down I do not recognize that from any Catholic that I know. He is misreading and misinterpreting the teachings.
I think that's a direct reflection of the Catholic social teaching of subsidiarity.
Again, it's not going to help us as far as going forward today, but he's wrong about it. He's wrong about the teaching of the church, but that's fine.
But I mean,
one thing I've got to ask here, excuse me here in this, Bill, and I know your passion. Believe me, I'm the reluctant Christian that all of a sudden gets a great gift, and I go, yeah, that's that miracle I better be thanking for right now because I haven't seen any in a while. Okay, we had some tough times, he and I, and we've been able to maintain and sit there and have new items. I understand that. But again, I was in the Springs, and I saw homelessness. I saw shelters that is not my Colorado Springs of 10 years ago. And I'm seeing that we are not taking care of our people. And that's all I want. I want to take care of our citizens first. And, I'm a first generation, and I hammer that sickle to make sure that people understand that it is an important item. We need to take care of Americans first, look at everybody else and go, look, I can't give you $1,000, but here's $100. Good luck. We need to sit there and start saying to everyone else, we need to get out of NATO. I mean, believe me, I'm going to pull out of everything for 3 months, let everybody sit there and start sucking for air, going, what happened? And then come back and go, you know what? Maybe we can work a better deal. I mean, the same thing with the tariffs. Everything was going to be horrible. Oh my God, we're going to pay 10 cents more for this, $1 more for that. And yet everybody capitulated. But he can't keep playing that card because one day they're going to say, okay, go ahead. And we're going to see things happen. So there's a lot going on.
Move. Well, Dwayne, I sure appreciate the call. Thanks so much. Great to hear from you, and wish your best to your son. Thank you. Dwayne's line will be open 303-696-1971. Breaking news coming. HHS Secretary nominee Robert F. Kennedy Jr. voted out of the Senate committee. So that will head to the full floor vote. That's good news. Good news for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. today. All right, we'll continue with the phone calls and the discussion on USAID. I want to talk to you about my friends over at Advanced Hair Restoration. How about a simple New Year's resolution that even I could achieve. Reverse the clock on hair loss with Advanced Hair's simple one-day FUE treatment. You'll feel more confident and more youthful when you witness your own natural hair growing in those places that have been balding or thinning for years. From Advanced Hair's breakthrough technology to their highly experienced team, there's no one I trust more in hair restoration. Their simple FUE treatment begins to regrow your own natural hair the very next day, and your new hair is backed by Advanced Hair's guarantee. Simply put, Advanced Hair's exceptional standard of care makes your comfort and your results their top priority. Celebrate this new year with a fuller head of hair and get a free consultation, $250 off, and 250 free hair grafts. Call 720-459-HAIR. That's 720-459-HAIR. Discover what meeting your resolution can look like with that before and after pictures at advancedhair.com. That's advancedhair.com. All right, we'll continue. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Is USAID done for? Rubio, Elon Musk, Trump all hinting at that. Is that a good thing? We're spending too much money in other countries. Is it benefiting America? Do we need to put America first? Or, look, we're the richest country in the world, and we can help other people. This is a form of soft power. It benefits the United States, and we're a charitable Christian nation. Where do you land on all this? Eric Manning saying USAID is a scam. It's a money honeypot for the Democrats. Lisa in Castle Rock saying, my opinion is to keep USAID, but have strict accountability on where and how the money is spent. Thanks, Lisa.
Did Eric outline any of the money pot things, the scams at all? Because that's what I haven't seen with Elon
We're
either,
getting
the
text
fraud.
messages coming on Haiti. Look at Haiti. The money from USAID was going to dictators' pockets, not poor people in those countries.
Okay, that could be fraud. We got an instance there. Good. I'm glad we finally identified one out of everything, because the stuff that we had from Elon and the press secretary from Trump, that's not fraud. It's just stuff we don't like. And we could say that could be waste and abuse. Okay, fine. But it's not fraud. And that's not the sales thing that Elon said when he came out, that it was just full of fraud and full of, yeah.
We'll have to see. But let's go back to the phone lines. Josh, Colorado Springs, where do you file on this USAID debate, Josh?
Well, I don't know the details, and I'm sure they'll be coming out. I'm hoping. But, I mean, we know about fraud in our federal government, and we can't afford to sustain it anymore. I mean, you look at, I'm a Catholic too, Bill, and Catholic charities, Lutheran Family Services being cut. I mean, with them supporting illegal immigration and basically fast-tracking welfare, food stamps, housing, where's the separation of church and state? We heard about NASA using $1,200 toilets, and we were like, well, hopefully that's done. And we are spending $600 million on sushi. Like, I work for the federal government and Congress, and just a little bit that I saw, it's criminal. And something drastic needs to happen, because it's not sustainable. It's not a partisan issue. It's Republicans and Democrats. Republicans, especially in Congress, don't represent small government anymore. I mean, that's a joke, because we are where we are because a lot of them voted for this. Yep. And so we do need to pull back. Elon Musk donated over $8 billion since 2021. I don't think, as we cut through things, this department's actually going to be rolled into the State Department. They've shut it down, but it's the activities and things are going into the State Department. So the standalone department is gone, but it's rolled into the State Department. So, and they're going to assess it and move forward on mission. But there's been rumors since military and government that organization was working hand in hand, pushing CIA initiatives. I mean, there's so much that we know about, and so much even more that we don't, that these things need to be called. I mean, it's just fact. Government never shrinks unless something painful happens. And so I'm for it. I mean, there needs to be an assessment, and it needs to be painful cuts, because we can't do this anymore.
Josh, that's the sense I get from our callers. We just can't do this anymore. It's a sense of fatigue. I think it's a sense of frustration rooted in a lack of success. Look, if USAID went in and you had a country that was having problems with its economy, having problems with its agriculture, and in the course of 5 years was able to turn it around. Things were looking great. These countries were now self-sufficient. Then I think people would go, okay, all right, well, that seems to work pretty well. We're 60 years into this project. We're spending $50 billion. I don't hear, maybe they exist out there, I don't hear a lot of success stories coming out. How much money have we poured into Haiti, and it still struggles? I mean, it's overrun by gangs. We poured billions of dollars into Afghanistan, Iraq. Those were wastes. We spent an entire war in Vietnam. Well, that country.
What about Ukraine?
I mean, Ukraine. I don't see.
I mean, Ukraine.
Zelensky
just came out. Zelensky just came out and said he doesn't know where like half the resources came back. And I called, I think, a year and a half ago, and talked about a friend of mine that worked for the State Department, and he did logistics. He does logistics around the world where we're quote unquote not at. And he said he was like, stuff was disappearing. They were putting tracking devices on it. And he said it was landing on the black market in Russian. And social media, I got like slaughtered. And then now it comes out that he doesn't know where half the stuff is.
Well, yeah, but
I mean,
it wouldn't be
there
half.
is
It'd be some of the stuff that made it to Ukraine, and there were investigations. There are still ones that are ongoing based on fraud. But 62% of the money that we earmarked for aid went to American companies or American contractors. So that was the shell game.
But he's
with
talking
Ukraine.
about the
Stuff, the stuff that's below that. Yeah, the other stuff, the other 40. Yeah,
too.
the other 40% went somewhere else because the resources that were allocated here, that 60%, that wasn't going into payments, etc., inside of Ukraine. The other 40% plus, there are some questions about where that went, and there are some investigations on it. But on the other end, the 60% plus did go to American contractors and paid American companies, because part of the reason we were giving them old equipment and then we're replacing it on our own. It was basically like a USA garage sale. We gave them all the stuff that we weren't using anymore, especially the ammo and things, and then we had to replenish it, which we're already up for replenishment requests in some areas already. And so, I get that. And the Elon Musk, I know the donations, but he donated to his own foundation. Again, that is charity, but it's not like he was wandering around, and there are some things that his charity has done that are a good deal, but it wasn't as if he made some of the, he didn't write checks to things like Catholic
do. I mean, Ann Schutz has foundations, tons of them.
Yeah, but that's
what
why
smart
is
people
it,
do.
Yeah, I know, but they do it more as a tax break than when the
I don't
average
blame
person
them.
like
If I was a billionaire,
Yeah,
I mean, Ann Schutz has done more in Colorado than any other family in Colorado, and it's a tax break. But we're the most generous country in the world, and the richest people can afford to be more generous. And I don't slight them for taking tax benefits. I do it any way I can. But Elon cutting things, it's not his job to write checks to fill that void, especially if those voids are corrupt. That's my point.
But has he shown us the corruption? Has he?
But
Has he, though,
it's
Josh?
only
Has he
been
shown us the corruption?
like 48 hours, sir.
But he's, he's claimed it.
You know
though.
what I mean?
I understand that, but he's claimed it already. And if he's going to claim it, he should be able to show it, correct?
But what if it's CIA and different things that they have to clean out? I mean, the layer of bureaucracy.
How can he claim it though?
He can.
But how can he claim it?
What do
He
you
doesn't
mean?
have. He doesn't have security clearance, and he shouldn't be seeing CIA funding. That would be classified. I mean, you're not
But
saying
what I
that someone
mean
that is
is he
unelected
has
as a bureaucrat
resources.
now has the ability to see CIA classified funding. That would be crazy.
Bureaucrats see that stuff already. To think that,
But they have to have clearance. They have to have clearance
naive.
for it, though. They do have to have clearance for it.
Elon Musk has clearance because of his SpaceX.
No, he doesn't.
He has top clearance. You need to research that. You'd be surprised.
I'll take a look at it. I'm not
Yeah.
aware that he's been given that level of clearance.
Josh, really appreciate the call. Thanks so much. Josh from Colorado Springs, his phone line will be open, 303-696-1971. We'll continue. I think we got a break coming up. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's go back to the phone lines. Gary, Denver's on the line. Good morning, Gary. What's on your mind?
Good morning.
Oh, just a federal worker getting ready to go back to the office.
You're one of the 40,000 or so in Colorado, huh?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've been isolating too much, so I'm looking forward to interacting with my coworkers.
Now, 9 News did a report yesterday about the 40,000 or so that the federal government is actually the largest employer in the state of Colorado. Now, in all the reporting and their coverage of what could happen to those jobs, they never asked the question, is 40,000 too many employees? But are you liking the changes that Donald Trump's implementing, Gary?
Well, I would prefer to work at home because I'm more productive here. But you know, he is the boss, so whatever he says goes. And I work for the IRS. We're a relatively small part. You know, we have a very small office in Colorado, but I understand that, and you know, I'm just going to do what the boss tells me to do, so that's fine. But I wanted to talk about, you know, all these, you know, how everyone's talking about how Trump is flooding the zone, right? Just doing all these things, flooding the zone. And all of this is a prelude to what's going to happen March 20th. And that's when the CR runs out and they're going to have to pass a new budget.
Yep.
Now, the thing I disagree with Trump is with the USAID. It's obvious, you know, it was just a shiny object, and they don't really understand the programs, and that was evident by the list, the pathetic list that their press secretary talked about. You know, it was like, oh, $39,000 for this, and it was ridiculous, but it was $39,000. I mean, give me a break. But what they really should do is go through the budget they're going to propose on March 20th, line by line, and strip out all of these things. And they should be able to get support from their Republican senators and House members. And hopefully that will be able to spend within their means, because they will have systematically gone through the entire budget, and it will be passed by Congress. And going forward, will not only help the deficit, but their priorities will be straight. Instead of doing this silly, you know, PR gimmick with, we're going to completely eliminate USAID.
Do you think they could do both, though? Because here's my concern. When you get it into Congress and you get all the special interests and all the lobbyists and all these charities showing up, we have to get this funding. We have to get this funding. At the end of the day, you end up with a budget that probably looks like it does today. Why not freeze it, then go through that process? Why can't we do both?
Well, I think, you know, freezing dollars that have already been appropriated, why not, you know, you should, you know, slowly decrease the funding, but you don't just stop feeding kids in Africa. If we've committed to do that, at least for another, it would be another month and a half. I mean, I don't think that's asking too much. And if Trump has so much influence on the senators and Congress people, he should have no problem, you know, deflecting those lobbyist cries for funding their programs if Trump understands what's going on.
Gary, I appreciate the call, and I appreciate your perspective. And my side would be, if we've been feeding the kids in Africa for 60 years, then they need to figure out a way to feed themselves at this point and not rely upon American taxpayers who are $36 trillion in debt to be the ones to do it. But to Gary's point, and I will agree with him on this, if this is not taken care of in Congress, and this is why I get frustrated with Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, is we are still to this day paying Nancy Pelosi's budget while Republicans have had control for years now. They won't actually come up with their own budget, push it through, get things cleaned up in Congress. Why are we electing Republicans? If you're not going to do that, if you're the power of the purse in Congress, and year after year we push you into power and you just pay Nancy Pelosi's budget, omnibus spending package, come on, guys. So to Gary's point, I agree with you on that side. Get it done in Congress for sure. All right, we'll continue. Billy's going to help me understand what a sovereign wealth fund is coming up, because apparently more government funds are needed. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
is 9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, February 4th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. I want to talk sovereign wealth fund because I'm skeptical. Okay. Yesterday, Axios reporting President Trump signed an executive order Monday calling for the creation of a sovereign wealth fund, essentially a federally owned investment vehicle that takes stakes in different kinds of financial assets. It's unclear where the money would come from to start the fund, and it would require congressional approval, given the fund would potentially be a way to cut lawmakers out of a key funding stream. It was a little bit vague on details, but this isn't just Donald Trump. The Biden White House had also been looking for creating one of these funds, but it appeared the goal was to put money into investments in the national security interests, including technology, energy, and supply chains. Here's why I'm skeptical. All right. When we created the Social Security Fund and it was doing great, making lots of money. Look at all this money we got from the workers, and it was more money than we were spending out. Along comes a government official and says, nice fund you got there. I sure would like to use the money in it via IOUs to fund my special government, special interest projects. And lo and behold, Congress took the money and went out there and spent it. Oh, and look, they don't have the money for the IOUs anymore. It just seems, and Bill, maybe I'm just getting older. I get more Ron Paul-ish as I get older, where I'm like, it's always dumb if the government does it. It's always a waste of money if the government does it. And like Grover Norquist said, we need to shrink the government to the size I can drown it in a bathtub. And so I just see this. It's another fund. All right. And I guess, Saudi Arabia has sovereign wealth funds. I think Alaska has a sovereign wealth fund because they have all this energy money pouring in, and then they use that money to go invest in other areas and stuff like that. But it's just I just see it as another government fund. And 10 years from now, some lib bureaucrat's going to raid it and fund special projects with it. Help me understand this, please.
Yeah, for me, this is a nightmare of an idea. And I'm not certain why or what Trump is going to accomplish with it. I mean, he floated the idea of maybe we'll do something with TikTok. Well, it's not going to be up and running in time for any purchase of TikTok. But is that what you want? You want the government purchasing TikTok? Weren't we mad about the connection to the Chinese government? So you want a social media company run by the government? Really? Weren't we screaming and yelling and running around with our hair on fire when the Biden administration was reaching out, and the Trump administration did it as well, and so did the Obama administration, reach out to social media companies and ask them to take posts and things down? And now you're going to have the government running the entire social media company. Okay, that's an interesting platitude from a bunch of free speech people that were so worried about shadow banning and the algorithm and everything else. So basically, you're just saying that basically what we're advocating for is that if we make investments like TikTok, it should just become a propaganda channel. We need to make it like TAST, and that's what we need to do, Pravda. We need to make it, just rename it.
Like Channel 9.
Yeah, so exactly. Nicely done. I appreciate that one. The other one I've got to do is we spent a lot of time last hour, actually a couple hours this morning, but last hour especially, $36 trillion in debt. $36 trillion in debt. $36 trillion in debt. Where's the money for the sovereign wealth coming from? Where's the fund? Where's the money coming from? Nobody has been able to accurately outline that for me. Where are we getting it from? I'm real curious about that, given the fact that we are deficit spending. And what I don't understand here is Donald Trump is pushing, and we thought that Elon Musk and all the people in the text message machine and the calls today are like, Musk is cutting the government back. He's going to make sure that we are not overspending. That what about in all the text messages here about we can't possibly be spending more on these children that have AIDS or need food or building water and wells and stuff in other countries. We can't do that because we can't take care of our own. We all have these homeless people on the streets. We have all these people that our schools are failing and So where's the money for the sovereign wealth fund coming from? Did somehow, maybe, perhaps, Jeff, maybe, and maybe our listeners can help us, did all those problems get solved in the last 10 minutes? They were all solved? That now we have a largesse of money? We have a giant pool of money that we now can create a sovereign wealth fund?
It would be an investment fund. That's what a sovereign fund is. It's an investment fund owned by the state, often run by a central bank. They invest in an array of assets, including stocks, bonds, and precious metals. The goal of a sovereign wealth fund, which is common, but not always found in countries with budget surpluses, little or no debt, or income from oil, can be varied. Sometimes they're used to stabilize government revenues, to help position a country as a financial center, Korean Investment Corporation, for example, or to provide for future generations.
Yeah, we didn't click any of those boxes.
As in the case of Norway.
As far as people investing and why people create them and how, we didn't click any of those boxes. We aren't in any of those positions when they say, and that's the part that I'm looking at is, where's this money coming from? And then you're telling me you want this to be run, and you're absolutely accurate that it will become a slush fund that money is pulled out of for all sorts of other things because it's not earmarked. I understand. And people here yelling and screaming at me on the text message machine about the USAID. Oh my God. And it's a slush fund and they're just using money on all their pet projects. I know, but those all had to be line item things that had to be appropriated and had to be sent out. So we could do an audit and take a look at all the stuff that would be fraud and possible waste. And that is a good thing. But we don't have that with this sovereign wealth fund. This becomes as you accurately describe, a slush fund. The other part is, where's the money coming from? Where are we pulling it from? Because it's got to be a large pile of money. It can't just be a couple of million.
$50 billion.
If that's what we want to do, okay, fine. Then we can make the argument and say 50 billion, move it on over. And let's see what happens with that. The other part is a central bank controls it. So it wouldn't be the president per se. That would be a central bank, meaning the Fed. The Fed would be the central bank that would control that.
And we can't even audit the Fed.
Yeah. But the other part is understand that the pressure that Donald Trump has. He's mad right now at Powell because Powell didn't lower interest rates. He's really mad. He beforehand was saying, you've got to lower interest rates. You've got to lower interest rates. Then Powell didn't. And he came out and he goes, I'm happy he didn't lower interest rates. So the idea, though, is the president doesn't necessarily have untoward influence and shouldn't over what the Fed is doing. And you don't want to give the sovereign wealth fund control to the executive branch. That would be silly. You may like it now with Trump, but you're not going to like it if there's a Democrat in there.
I know, because they'll just spend it.
And Congress is just going to siphon it off for their own pet projects and not actually do what it's intended to do.
Those
Social Security.
are my concerns. Yes, exactly.
That's the problem.
Jason in Denver, sovereign wealth fund equals socialism.
Oh, in some ways. Yeah, I'm not sure that necessarily socialism. The thing for me is because Saudi Arabia has one, and they're not socialist. And there are some other countries around the world that have them that aren't necessarily socialist. But that's done where you have an excess of money, you're running a budget surplus, and you don't have debt. So you're putting this money aside to do something with that. None of those things are true about the U.S. None of those things as far as being able to create a sovereign wealth fund. And I can't figure out what the mechanism is, where the money comes from, and what they're going to do with it.
What if they create a sovereign wealth fund, take some of the money that's going to programs like USAID, start to invest it in bonds and stocks, increase the amount in that sovereign wealth fund, and then that goes and is appropriated only to tackle our debt?
Appropriated how?
By Congress. It has to be appropriate. This has to be approved by Congress. So Congress says, all right, we're going to do the sovereign wealth fund, and it can only be used to address our debt problems.
I'm not sure I would create it as a sovereign wealth fund then. What I would do is I would create a deficit reduction fund, and I would funnel it that way. Because as soon as you create a sovereign wealth fund, there are, I believe, the parameters are way too wide to say it's only going to be used to the debt. If you want to tailor it that way and say we are going to do this, and honestly, The idea of taking some of our own money and reinvesting it, I wouldn't do it in stocks, but reinvesting it in bonds and some T-bills.
Yeah.
There is some real merit to that. I wouldn't want it invested in the stock market, because as soon as the government per se starts investing in the stock market, it can't see it. It can't fail. So you're too big to fail.
Yeah, and then it becomes...
Yep, and that's the reason why, and that's okay, side note here, just a tangent, that's the reason why there's this giant push to get our 401ks, our retirement, and our Social Security money into the stock market. It's not because it's a better vehicle. It's because it creates a floor that will never fail. It allows all the day traders, it allows all the hedge fund managers freedom, because they don't have to be worried about losing the money, because if the money losses gets too bad, the government's going to come in and cover their losses. So basically, it's a safety valve. They want the Social Security money. They want our retirement money in the stock market, because that's dumb money. The money doesn't move very quickly. The government isn't spending days, and they're not going looking at PE earnings and looking at investment value and changing where the investments are going like hedge funds are. So it creates an artificial safety net for those investors. That's why the people that suggest privatizing Social Security, that's why they want it. Has nothing to do with you or I in paying for the fund. It has to do with a safety mechanism for people in the stock market so that they don't lose their money by making stupid decisions. They're free to make all sorts of crazy bets. It's like going into Vegas and saying, yes, here's $1 million to go bet on all the baseball games or bet on the Super Bowl. But if you lose too much, I'll make you good. I'll make sure that you get that money back. It's just dumb.
Jason in Denver, printing money to invest in a sovereign wealth fund would be inflationary. Crowd out public investment.
Yeah,
so that's an interesting point.
Yeah, it absolutely would.
2775. Saudi Arabia is a great nation to mimic.
I appreciate that so much on so many levels. That is so good. And this is a hard one for me. And the sovereign wealth fund is I hate it, but I also love it because Saudi Arabia owns my English Premier League team. The Saudi wealth fund owns Newcastle United. And it had to be cleared through the EPL and through the the Football Association and some other stuff as well. It took a couple of years, and part of it becoming, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking earlier. They're worried about this because there's a number of them. Qatar has bought, Manchester City. That there's a couple others out there they've invested in, and what they're worried about is the soft power, because now that the Saudis own Newcastle United, if England gets sideways with Saudi Arabia, now they can go, it's a really nice football club you have there. It'd be a shame if something happened to it.
Well, join the conversation. Are you in favor of the sovereign wealth fund? Are you skeptical of it? Is this a good vehicle for the United States to raise wealth, address some of its issues, maybe even purchase TikTok? I mean, you have Donald Trump in charge of a fund that that could benefit the government. Maybe some smart investors as well. Look at what Harvard's done with their endowment, right? It's so big that it's bigger than some economies out there in countries. So is this a good vehicle, or are you skeptical of another government program that may generate wealth, but is just going to be used to
I think you hit on
generate
there, my friend.
Special interests?
The Harvard endowment?
Yeah.
Let's make it a donation only. Let's grow the sovereign wealth fund for the U.S. through donations.
There you go.
There you go. There we go. We put it under the purview of the Fed, but you want to grow it?
You can donate it to it.
Yeah. Let's see how that works out.
Yeah, I'm sure people like to donate to that. I always see that on the IRS, like you can pay more on your taxes.
Yeah, no. There are a couple of things I will, like wildlife stuff. I'll click on it, but the rest of the stuff, no.
Yeah.
I paid enough. And Jeff, I want to take a moment here, just talk to our listeners about something else that you've spent enough time, you spend enough of your effort dealing with in your life. And it's basically chronic wounds. There's a brand new advertiser here on our show, Wound Care Associates of Colorado, and I want you to check them out. If you are dealing with a slow healing cut, a pressure sore, diabetic ulcer, you or someone in your family, it doesn't seem like a big deal. Hey, when we're older, those cuts and scrapes and bruises and stuff don't heal as well. Sometimes it can take 3-4 times as long as it did when you were younger, because your body's not manufacturing the same amount of blood, same amount of cells, everything else. A whole bunch of science behind it. But what it means is those simple, small cuts stick around longer, giving dirt, germs, bacteria, all those bad guys, more access to your body. Getting through that soft tissue and into your bloodstream is exactly what they're trying to do. And that can lead to some really dangerous things. You don't just want to, treat the problem, you want to fix the problem. That's why you want to talk to Wound Care Associates of Colorado. We're going to talk with Jennifer tomorrow. She'll tell you the story of what happened to her uncle. And in my own family, my aunt had a chronic wound, a cut on her leg, and she went into the hospital. She contracted MRSA because of one of the visits. Ended up in the hospital for weeks at a time. Never really got it fixed. That wound became worse and worse and ended up with a few amputations because of it. Just because she didn't get that chronic wound fixed. They were just treating it to make sure it didn't get any worse. That's dumb, isn't it? Yeah, going to the doctor and they're just going to try not to make it any worse. What am I paying you for, doc? See, that's different. Wound Care Associates of Colorado is going to come to your home. You know, just like the old days where a nurse practitioner comes to your home and takes care of you. That's what they do. In the privacy and comfort of your own home, you get the professional treatment that you need. They will put together a tailored care plan based on your wound and your situation. You'll receive the expert care at your convenience on your calendar, and you don't have to go anywhere. They come to you. They're going to reduce the risk of complications and promote faster healing because they're going to fix the wound. They're not going to worry about just maintaining it so it doesn't get any worse. They know from personal experience, you don't fix this thing, bad things happen. They're not going to let it happen to you, nor to the people in your family. This is how you make this happen. ColoradoWound.com. Visit ColoradoWound.com if you or a loved one is struggling with a chronic wound. For all the information and to schedule your in-home visit, ColoradoWound.com. They are a game changer in this industry. You won't regret it. And when you reach out to them, tell them you heard about them here on the Jeff and Bill Show, because boy, does it help us out.
That's great to hear, Bill. Let's check in on news and comment with Blake Olson.
The first term of USA.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. 25 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 48. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
Mr. Kennedy has proven his commitment to the role of Secretary of the HHS, and I will vote in favor of his nomination. I strongly encourage my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to do the same.
Mike Crapo from Idaho, RFK Jr.'s nomination for head of the Department of Health and Human Services is heading to the Senate floor. A Senate committee voted along party lines today to advance DJT's cabinet pick. The vote was 14-13.
Mr. Chairman, the final tally is 14 ayes, 13 nays.
2 employees of the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority have been arrested for leaking a video of last week's Wednesday's deadly mid-air collision over the Potomac. The MWAA says the employees illegally copied the video and then gave it to CNN. 2 Maryland men were arrested and charged with computer trespass. Both men have been released from custody pending further court hearings. DJT worked with Canada and Mexico on Monday, and Scott Jennings had to clear some things up with a Washington Post reporter.
I mean, I don't know what Trump wanted in this situation. Again, he didn't actually get anything. But if he were to put these tariffs in place, they would be very painful for American consumers. Okay, Scott. I mean, this is
the total lie.
This is public information.
He got what he wanted. He got an agreement from our neighbors to do more on the border. That's what he wanted, and he got it.
Exactly what they have already been doing. I
understand you're the minister of propaganda tonight, but you don't have to be. You could just say, "Hey, all's well that ends well." Here, come on.
If you don't know that these countries are committing to do exactly what they have already been doing, either you haven't done your homework or you think the American people are idiots. Because again, they're doing
or option
exactly
three. Donald Trump is enforcing what needs to be done at the border, which is more help from our friends. They are our allies and they are important people, but they need to help us, and they've not been helping us, and now they're going to help us even more.
They have been.
But the point is that it's also
ask every family with a fentanyl death how much they've been.
Yeah, I like option 3. Nice job. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is meeting with DJT at the White House later today. He'll be the first foreign leader to meet with Trump in his second term. Top officials at the FBI are preparing for today's deadline to turn in information to the Justice Department related to employees who worked Capitol riot cases. Thousands of agents and employees were asked to fill out a survey that detailed their roles in the investigation into January 6th defendants. Multiple reports say acting director Brian Driscoll and other senior leaders have decided to comply with the order to turn over the names involved in Capitol riot cases by noon Eastern.
But also how it would jeopardize the mission here. And how it would pull from resources of the personnel here who are doing the no-fail national security.
Colorado Democratic Congressman Jason Crow toured the Buckley Space Force Base Monday after reports surfaced that the base would be used for mass deportation efforts, and he says he got some answers.
Sometimes I've learned that when there are reports, when there are rumors in a community, the best thing to do is just show up and start poking around and to get information for yourself.
And while visiting, Crow said he found federal law enforcement operating there, including Homeland Security and ICE. He also said he was told by Buckley officials that the base will not be used to house illegal immigrants and detainees. It will only be used as a staging location for law enforcement and a coordination center for ongoing operations.
This
Any
guy,
thoughts, Jeff?
Jason Crow is Colorado's AOC.
Yes.
At this point. Okay.
Without a doubt.
Never really does anything to address problems in his community, but whatever the progressive talking point is, he can find a camera, get in front of it, make his claim, all this stuff. He's the progressive liberal bleeding heart of the Denver metro area. But when his own constituents were being tortured by Venezuelan gangs, Did you find a camera on Jason Crow? No, you didn't.
That was too difficult.
But if an immigration nonprofit wants you to go at the Buckley Air Force Base to snoop around things and look, of course. Yeah. And he brings his little podium. Done. Yeah, he brings his little podium. He's out there. He makes his press release. Oh my goodness!
It's funny. He says that they'll be performing regular check-ins, so you can meet him out there.
Thank you, Jason. Way to prioritize the people of your district. By the way, the challenge still is open for Jason Crow, whose district office is across the parking lot from the studio here. Come on over. We got a camera.
There we go.
Come on over. Enjoy
Spend
some time
a couple
with
hours.
us. We'll have a conversation. We'll really benefit the people of Colorado. Look, just give this guy a show on MSNBC and allow John Fabricatori to take his place, and everybody will be fine. He gets the camera all the time. He gets the DC cocktail parties. He gets all that, and then we actually get somebody that does work in the district.
That's right.
Sorry.
I love it. I knew you'd have some good on that, and you didn't disappoint. Thank you very much. No matter how and what you feel about USAID, Americans give, and they don't need the government to do it. We give. That's what we do. Arthur Brooks always talks about this, and what Alexis de Tocqueville observed in America a long, long time ago.
Ordinary people banding together to do normal things that help the lives of others all around them, to raise barns, to send missionaries out to the far-flung reaches of the world, things that just wouldn't happen in other countries around the world. So this is not something brand new. On the contrary, this is truly part of American
exceptionalism. Yes. Obama, you need to know that word, figure out that word. American exceptionalism. 2 words. Nuggets over the Pelicans 125-113, Avalanche and Vancouver tonight. And it's 22 in Parker, 23 in Broomfield, 25 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
I want to welcome everyone to this very important hearing.
Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast, a chilly start across the Denver metro, but sunshine will help us get back to around the mid-50s for highs today. Lows tonight mild in the middle and upper 30s. For Wednesday, stronger westerly winds will provide a downslope and give us temps in the mid-60s. Skies will also be mostly sunny. Breezy winds for Wednesday night with lows in the upper 30s. Thursday and Friday, we're going to drop to the mid-50s, 40s, and a few rain and snow showers this weekend. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Well, you know what Denver Public Schools decided to do, Bill? They looked out upon the people of Denver that they could hire to improve the lives of the students that they're charged with caring for, and felt that Aonte Anderson was the best person to employ.
What?
Yep.
Is he, okay, now, but before I judge this, is he picking up the trash or is he cleaning the bathrooms? Because I'm thinking that based on what we've seen so far, that's about where I'd put him. So he's got a new janitor job inside the school system.
Well, Bill, I've got some news for you.
Uh-oh, this doesn't sound good. This isn't good, is it?
And we'll get to it next. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
So scared. This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS. What are they going to have him do? This is really worrisome.
to take a moment of personal privilege on the Jeff
Yeah.
Bills show. Yesterday, we had Stephen Tubbs in.
Oh, yeah, we did.
And Stephen always has a special place in his heart for Aonte.
He does.
Shanae
Yes.
Anderson. Is that what he called him? I'm trying to remember.
I don't remember what it was. He had so many ones. Yeah, there's so many fun.
There.
Yeah.
We had a good laugh and talked about the little special chapter of Stephen Tubbs' life where he got to provide coverage of Aonte Anderson when he was a former member of the school board.
Yep.
Well, Channel 9 had this out.
What?
This isn't our reporting. Channel 9, controversial ex-school board member returns to the Denver Public Schools. Add this to the box of, for the love of God, get your kids out of government-run schools. Aonte Anderson, who was censured for his behavior while on the Denver School Board, has been hired by Denver Public Schools to work at a middle school. Former Denver School Board member Aonte Anderson, who has been censured by his colleagues after an investigation found he flirted on social media with a 16-year-old, has a new role in the district. Anderson is working as a restorative justice coordinator at Manual Middle School.
Oh, so he's wearing Manual. Oh, okay. I know Manual. Oh, that's interesting. That again, and the restorative justice is just the fancy name for disciplinarian, only because they didn't want the kids to. I understand, but again, I don't care what the name is. I understand there's an issue for you on that one. I don't care about the name. The name's somewhat irrelevant to me because the role is still the same. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it the man with the funny hat. I don't care.
But I mean,
I don't care about
this
that.
guy.
Yeah,
This guy.
Yeah, here's the thing for me is that one. Now, I wouldn't say this. This is not necessarily my opinion. So this isn't me per se, but I'm certain that maybe some in our audience, maybe the texters, would point out that maybe the middle schoolers are too young for him to flirt with. Because, the other times I wouldn't do that personally and say they're out of the window, the people that he's going to flirt with because he was. But, I'm just saying that some, not me, some may make that assumption that they just figured they'd put him in this situation because he didn't flirt with these type of students last time. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. I'm not saying anything's actually true about this. But I would want to wonder that how come he's the best person? What I'm curious about is who were the other applicants? Now, they don't have any reason to show us those, but this guy, this is the person that has the best applicant that you had on your desk of all the choices of people that wanted to be the disciplinarian at Manual Middle School. This guy who has been under investigation was censured for flirting with students inappropriately in the past through text messages while they were in a position of authority. You want to give that person more access to students. Someone needs to explain that to me. Why in the world would you give any public school employee that has been censured after an investigation into them having inappropriate conversations with students, would you ever give them access to students? Why would you possibly make that decision? Oh, yeah, I remember. This is the same school district that decided that a person that was kicked out of an Aurora high school for bringing a weapon to school was going to be okay at a Denver public school and wasn't going to be searched by someone who had been trained properly and was going to be placed at a school that didn't have a school resource officer, in part because of Tay Anderson. So already we know the choices that Denver Public Schools makes based on what they've made in the past. This kid's been violent and brought a weapon to school. Oh, we absolutely can accept them and put them into a school here. Do we have any security, any staff that's on there that is law enforcement that could help and these kind of, no, you don't. Oh, okay. I'm certain nothing will go wrong. Only got 2 staff members shot. Good job. And the solution to the problem with not having a disciplinarian manual is to go and get the guy who was censured for having inappropriate conversations with a student. You're going to give him more access to students. And not only that, they're going to give him access to students that are in crisis. The students that are having problems,
Right.
the students that are having problems in class, they're having problems at home, the students that are disciplinarian, the students that are at their weakest. You're going to give them access to those kids? What the hell's wrong with you?
Just remember,
this is ridiculous.
Just remember, it wasn't but a month ago that he and Mayor Mike Kaufman came to words because Aon Tay Anderson likes to spend his evenings disrupting Aurora City Council meetings.
Yeah. So the idea is he wants to disrupt the meeting that is going on. He wants to be that agitator, yet he is now going to be in charge of implementing what in the school? The discipline.
Restorative justice.
The discipline. So he's going to tell the kids not to be disruptive in class. Otherwise, there's a consequence. If the kids stood outside the class and yelled and screamed things at the class in order to disrupt what was going on in math or English or social studies.
Great point.
That's what he did. That's what he thought was okay for an official meeting of the city. He thought that was okay for them to yell and scream. He thought it was okay for them to participate in the meeting and waste time and to scream at people. That's the behavior that he and his group engaged in.
Well, and then
now he has to be
exaggerated.
responsible for it.
You
Yes.
remember when Mayor Mike Kaufman says, goes up and gets in his face and shares some words. He said that he was attacked.
Yes. And again,
by Mayor Mike Kaufman.
He said he was attacked. He said he was attacked by Mayor Mike Kaufman. Kaufman, to what we saw in the video, didn't seem to even touch him, but certainly didn't strike him. Certainly didn't cause any sort of harm to him. But that was an attack. And remember, this is also a guy who, when they were cleaning out Civic Center Park and moving homeless camps, fell down after he was bumped into by a Denver police officer and threatened to file a lawsuit. That's how he reacted. And now
soccer flop.
Yep. And now, absolutely. And I love soccer. I know a flop when I see a flop. And that was an absolute pretend. I'm a professional wrestling fan. That was a pretend. But the issue being, that's how he behaves in his professional life and how he behaved in public. And now he's the person telling these kids that you have to follow the rules. He's the person to follow the discipline. What happens when someone comes to him and says, I was attacked, and someone had done the same thing that Kaufman had done to him? Is that an attack? Does he view it that way? Does he go and suspend the Mike Kaufman person? How does he possibly do this? This is such a question of judgment. It is ridiculous.
That's an understatement.
Yeah,
Anderson was
ridiculous.
hired for his new role. 9 News reporting in November of 2024 after working as a guest teacher in the district since April 2000.
As a guest teacher.
Anderson
wonderful.
declined to comment on his employment with DPS. Anderson did not seek re-election to the school board in 2023, ending a 4-year term marked by a series of controversies and confrontations. In 2021, an investigation substantiated claims that Anderson sent flirtatious social media messages to a 16-year-old DPS student while on the school board. Anderson said he stopped communicating with the girl when he learned her age. Anderson's school board colleagues censured him by a vote of 6-1, with only Anderson being the opposing vote. The board called his conduct behavior unbecoming of a board member.
Yes, but it could be becoming of a school employee, right? DPS? Yes. The behavior that he's engaged in the past is absolutely supported and viewed as acceptable inside of... No, it's not. But you put someone in that has had this behavior in the past, and you're giving him access to kids again. That is dangerous. That's irresponsible. That's a dereliction of your duty. And if this is the best person that applied for the job, your district has some severe problems. Don't come to us again and talk about, don't talk to Jeff and I or anybody else in our audience about the fact that kids aren't showing up to school, that we're having to close down DPS schools because our enrollment is so bad. Do you think maybe DPS, that part of the reason your enrollment sucks is because you take the school resource officers out of schools and then put a violent kid who's brought a weapon to another Colorado high school into your school without any specific guardrails other than having them searched by a staff member, not a law enforcement professional that's been trained, got 2 people hurt? That's ridiculous. And the best employee, the best possible choice was the person that's been censured for inappropriately having conversations with a student while they were in a position of authority. If this is the best choice, if this is the best person for the job, this is the reason your school district is failing. This is the reason parents aren't signing up to go to your schools, because these are the people you hire. These are the jokers that you're putting in charge. This person in charge of discipline? Come on. I don't want to hear anything more from anybody at a DPS about our schools failing or our enrollment going down. You're doing this to yourselves. If you hire Tay Anderson as a disciplinarian, you're doing it to yourself. Stop complaining.
Well, 9 News asked DPS why the district would hire an employee who had been disciplined by the school board for that behavior.
Oh, goody. Their
response, hiring decisions for all school staff are made by the school, not by the district.
Okay.
DPS spokesman Scott Pribble said, per the school hiring team, Mr. Anderson was hired due to his past experience in similar roles.
Yeah, his past experience of flirting with kids. Yeah, that's great past experience. His past experience of putting other kids in danger. Yes, his past experience of laying down when he was bumped by a police officer and claiming it was an attack. His past experience of having another adult get in his face after he disrupted a meeting and get mad at him. And he claims that's an attack. That's the experience you looked for? I got a whole series of questions for the staff and especially the principal at Manual. You got to answer a lot of questions about this being the best possible choice. And I hope a lot of your parents phone in and ask the school, explain to me why this person who was censured while in a position of authority for flirting with students is having access to my student. Why are you doing this?
Well, and if this happens again, I hope you get sued into the ground.
Yes, please.
Anderson publicly teased a run for Denver City Council in 2022 before announcing that he would run to retain his board seat after polling showed for his reelection in single digits. He announced a run for Colorado House District 8 instead. Anderson dropped out of the state house in January 2024, saying that he wanted to ensure the crowded Democratic primary was won by a black candidate rather than a white or Latino candidate in the race. The race was won by now state representative Lindsey Gilchrist, who is white. The conclusion of Anderson's legislative race was paired with a request for $30,000 for a new education-focused nonprofit, the Center for Advancing Black Excellence in Education. Anderson expanded a disclaimer for his fundraising page, noting that the effort was not yet an IRS-recognized 501c3 nonprofit. In response to questions from 9 News, since leaving the school board, Anderson has remained prominently involved in advocacy work. In May of 2024, he attempted to organize a boycott of Inglewood schools over DEI concerns. Anderson currently leads a group that regularly protests Aurora City Council over police reform. Anderson's LinkedIn profile says he also runs Good Trouble Consulting. A DPS spokesperson said district policy does not allow for contracts with outside businesses run by employees. So he may be even in trouble for that. Yeah. Hey, we don't give him a lot of credit all the time, but Kyle Clark and 9 News got that one right.
Yeah, they did. Nicely done.
But like I said before, add a notch to the, for the love of God, get your kids out of government-run schools, from my perspective. All right.
That's the decision-making. The district all the way. And again, once the principal signs off on that, I understand the idea the decision is made by the school, but there is a review process possible higher up the chain, that if the chain looks at this and goes, I got questions about this, they can come in and ask. I'm not sure about rescinding a job offer, but I know there is a process in place to review job offers that are made to questionable candidates. That does exist inside the district. And nobody raised their hand according to what we're reading.
Text message, the Tay-Tay thing is like hiring a guy who had planned to break into the bank as the bank security guard.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. He's like, I don't think I want that money now. Maybe later.
All right, Marion Inglewood saying, I think Tay had a tweet out that said sex work is real work. Yeah, that's who you want.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Gracious. All right.
He's going to help
we'll
the disciplinary
continue.
nationals.
You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Tariff negotiations, USAID, sovereign wealth funds. What does it all mean? Bill, we had full phone lines, tons of text messages. We debated it all. So if you missed any part of this show, go to 710knus.com to download the podcast because, boy, this was up there, man.
This was so much fun. Yeah, and I love the fact that Blake was playing some clips in the news earlier, and it sounded like us. It was the national people doing the same thing we do right here with our audience. It was fantastic.
Same
really cool.
debates happening right here is what's happening on CNN. But let me give you a little insight. You can't call into CNN.
No, not at all. You can just yell at the TV, and that's no fun.
Right.
Call in and yell at me in live in person. It's much more fun.
You can do it here, but I want to say thank you to everybody. All the phone calls, all the text messages. This was one of the hottest mornings we've ever had, and it was because our listeners are amazing. So thank you all out there. You've been listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader. We are News Talk 710 KNUS. Huge shout out to our audience. Without you, we're just a bunch of weirdos standing on the corner yelling at each other.